And Sloan Dickey, one of our reporters out there, there's a group of people walking toward the camera. Are those employees? Are they staff? Are they all law enforcement? I can't see from the roofs of the cars. Oh, I see now. Okay, they are law enforcement. Very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of law enforcement out here. We're waiting actually from the public information officer. She said there's going to be some new information released any moment. She's been relaying with the police officers on the ground here. We're just kind of waiting for new information to come in. We see the helicopters flying overhead. We see the ambulances just waiting right now. There could be people inside. There could not be people inside. We don't know that answer right now. We do see police officers, SWAT teams standing outside of the building. We don't know what that reason is for. All I can say is that there are officers still on the scene. It's very active. We've seen people, police cars kind of coming in and out of this area. For what reason, we're not sure at this point. But again, it's still very active. The only thing I can relay is that if you are in Boulder, to stay away from this area right now. It's very active. Police really need to do their job right now and make sure that they clear that building and make sure it's safe before anything kind of moves forward from here.
Sloan, give us an idea as to how far away they're keeping folks from this store.
Yeah. Well, as you can probably see, we're maybe a football field and a half away from the store. Nobody's allowed past this point. We're literally at the yellow tape right now. Beyond this point, behind me, there's a few onlookers. Behind me as well, there's also some apartment buildings. There's a gas station. There are people standing around and watching just to see what's going on. But I can tell you, if you want to get to this point right now, it's pretty much completely closed off. The roads on Broadway to get here, the roads off of I-25 to get here, closed off in order to get to, the highway to get to here are closed off. So people are being turned away at different checkpoints.
Sloan, what about
into this area?
Have you seen ambulances? That's such an indicator of the severity of a situation. Is ambulances leaving the scene? Have you seen any of that? And also, have you been able to talk to anybody who was there early on who might have heard something?
I've spoken with a few people that are neighbors living in apartments around the area. They said they have not seen anything, have not heard anything. And speaking for the ambulances, we've seen a lot of ambulances on the scene, but you're absolutely right. We have not seen ambulances rushing off the scene. Now, I have to let you know, we were about 45 minutes. We arrived here about 45 minutes after the original incident took place. So we might have missed some of that initial activity. But right now, you're correct. The ambulances are waiting, sitting. Their lights are on, but they are not leaving the scene right now.
And what have you heard, or have you heard anything about the updates then from the public information from Boulder Police as to when that might happen, how soon that might happen?
We have heard that it will be momentarily. That was maybe 10 minutes ago. I'm looking at the Twitter feed for the Boulder Police Department. That's where they told us to go for some updates, as well as some public information officers will be giving us updates as well. It seems as though that feed has not been updated as of now, but we are expecting information and we'll definitely bring it to you as soon as we get it.
So if you could zoom in from where you were in that cluster of personnel surrounding that armored vehicle right there, and about 10 minutes ago, 12 minutes ago, they seem to be getting inside and moving toward the store. That completely has changed. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're the same number of people there, but they're no longer changing positions of the armored vehicles there, and the people do not seem to be still behind the shields as they were just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and it's possible that they have made some progress inside that store, Shannon, which is what this would indicate, that they are more milling about and conversing, and rather than being in a defensive mode as we saw for such a long time. This is going on now almost 2 hours now. So when we were first on the air with you, showing you live pictures from the scene out there, the SWAT officers, Boulder police officers, they were there in defensive mode all around that store, just trying to assess the situation. And now it seems that that maybe perhaps they have made some progress inside that store to better assess what exactly happened. Again, as you have heard, we are waiting on the public information officer to get some very specific information about what happened, and if there was more than one person involved with this active shooter situation. Again, and I say that only because we've only seen one person be hauled off in handcuffs, walked out onto an ambulance and taken away. And that is the extent of any very serious activity that we've seen outside of that store in
Right.
terms of people being taken away. I mean, obviously this is a very,
And
very scary situation right
yeah,
now.
and to explain this camera viewpoint, Air Tracker 7 was asked to leave the area by Boulder County Police. So we don't have Air Tracker 7 at the moment. We're going to try to get it back as soon as possible. We do have Addie Guajardo, I believe, a Denver 7 reporter who is on the scene with an interview. Addie?
Shannon, we just met Andrew Hummel. Andrew, you were inside the King Supers while all this unfolded. Tell us what you heard and what you were feeling.
I was just kind of in the back of the store, just kind of minding my own business, and I heard a loud bang, and then everybody kind of sprinted towards the back of the store, and then luckily I was already kind of open, so I had a quick exit, and everybody kind of funneled out to the back, and just had a lot of nerves, like so much uncertainty. I just kind of wanted to get out and make sure I was safe, and everybody that was there was not impacted by this horrifying event. And I got out safe, called my parents, called my friend Mason, who actually is an employee at the store, just made sure he's okay. And then luckily my roommates that live close by in the University Hill neighborhood came by and picked me up in the back area of the shopping center. And I just want to thank all the first respondents that headed to the scene and handled it extremely professionally and did everything they could to make sure everything went as smooth as possible. And I pray that everybody impacted by this is doing all right.
How did you hear one gunshot, multiple gunshots? What did you hear, or was it all a blur?
Everything definitely just went by really fast when it happened, but I heard multiple gunshots for sure, and then that's when I knew something was really going on. And so I just dropped what I was doing and just ran to the back of the store and left from like the loading dock area.
At first, I mean, we've seen the people playing jokes on other people inside the store. Did you ever at any point think that it was a joke, or did you know it was serious the moment you heard those rounds?
I definitely didn't think it was a joke. At first I heard like a loud bang, so I kind of thought like a shelf fell over or something like that. But then immediately when I heard multiple gunshots, I knew that it was something more than that. And so I just made sure I got out of there safely, and it was a really, truly horrifying experience.
Did you hit the ground? Did you immediately run? Did you know where you were going?
It was kind of a blur at first, and then once I could see some of the other customers in the grocery store heading towards the back, that's when I really kind of just followed their lead and kind of got out safely.
The fact that how did police respond? What did they say when you guys got inside? Did you hear any King Supers employees giving you guys any tips as to what to do or where to go?
Yes, I do remember a King Supers employee directing people to head to the back and stay safe and get out as efficiently as possible. So they definitely did their part. And I kind of fled the scene as soon as possible to get out safely and call my parents and whatever. But then the police officers and all the first respondents were on as soon as possible, and they locked down the area as soon as I could.
Addie,
you said you reached out to your mom and your dad. Did you text them? Did you call them? What did you say to them?
I basically just said, I'm okay. That was the first thing I said. I just wanted to make sure that they knew I was all right. But I told them that my friend Mason was still inside. He was the first thing on my mind was just because when I went into the store, I knew he had a shift today. So I just went in just like a regular old day, said hello, and then clearly it just was turned for the worse. And so that was my first priority, was just making sure that he got out safe.
Addie,
he was actually working today. What did he say to you when you reached out to him?
Well, I just walked in. He was just kind of doing his job, just said hello, just because he's my roommate. I didn't really think anything of it. And then, I don't know.
Give me 1 second. Our anchor Shannon has a question real quick that he'd like to ask you. So I'm going to
Has he spoken with his roommate Mason since, and what is he being told?
Yeah, we were just talking about that, Shannon. You said you did reach out to Mason. He was working today, and he's doing okay, right? Can you give us a little bit more insight as to what he told you he saw?
I am not entirely sure what he saw. He went to I think a storage room. It was kind of hiding with, I think, some other customers during the entire time. And then, but he was texting us updates, making sure he was all right, and I could tell that he was.
Can you read some of those text messages? I can't imagine what you guys were experiencing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest scary text that he sent. He just said, "I love you guys. Like, thank you for everything in case like things go bad." And that was a really hard text, especially me being in the situation. Like, that's something that I would never want to hear from any of my friends, because I knew the seriousness of what was going on, and it was horrifying. It was truly horrifying.
Your friend that was working at King Supers today didn't actually think he was going to make it out alive. He was worried.
Sadly, I would say yes to that answer.
Did you at any point question whether you were going to make it out alive?
Yeah, I guess I just had never experienced anything like what I saw, and I didn't see anything. I could just hear, and I just ran. I just wanted to get out of there, and there was a lot of elderly people I remember trying to get out too. So it was just like there was just so much going on in such a compact area, but I was out of there quickly. So I'm thankful for that, and I pray to God that everything is okay, and that I'm not really even sure what is still going on in there, but I just hope everything is okay.
How long would you say you were inside the store before police came in and gave you a plan to get out?
I was probably only there for a couple minutes once I heard the gunshots, and then I fled as soon as possible and ran to the back of the shopping center and called my parents.
What was your parents' response to this?
They just said, just pray for Mason, and they're thank God that I'm okay, and just get out of there and stay safe, and the help is on the way.
Any chance that if we called Mason, he'd be willing to talk to us about how he's doing?
Yeah. These are my roommates as well.
We're gonna send it back to you, Shannon, and we're gonna see if we can get a hold of Mason to give us his side of what
All right,
happened
Eddie.
inside while he was inside.
Thank you for
Supers
that.
when
We
this
appreciate.
incident happened.
You can hear
I can-
you can hear it in his voice. There's just
Absolutely.
how scared that young man was, as you can imagine. So many others inside that store, just knowing that someone they loved was inside that store as well. And and I want to remind people that Boulder police are still telling people just to stay away from the area. They are still there, as you can see from this live picture. They're still there monitoring. They're still trying to assess the situation. Again, we don't know what went on inside that store, but we obviously heard from that young man that this was a very scary situation. They just want people to stay away right now.
We still don't know what role, if any, the handcuff man that we showed you live, I don't know, an hour ago or so now, was being he was handcuffed. He had a bloody right leg, no shirt, no shoes, no socks, and was being taken away, placed in an ambulance. He arrived at the Boulder Community Hospital. We don't know his role. Perhaps there wasn't any role. I mean, you would assume that he was involved in this somehow, because it seemed he came out of that King Supers in handcuffs. But I think it was wishful thinking that he was the guy and that it was over. But that was a long time ago, and there are still a lot of very serious men and women in uniform with some serious guns and some serious firepower still at the entrance of the King Supers. And just 7 minutes ago, Boulder police tweeted out, "This is still a very active scene." That is a direct quote from them. So even though the shoulders have relaxed a little bit, what looks like from law enforcement there, they're not leaving.
Again, this has been going on about 2 hours now. They're in Boulder. Again, Andrew Heel, along with Shannon Ogden here in the Denver 7 studios, as we've been monitoring this situation along with you, as we've had multiple crews there on the ground and had Air Tracker 7 up earlier this afternoon so that you could get a bird's eye view of what was happening out there. But again, we had so many emergency vehicles out there that responded to this report of an active shooter at this King Supers. And again, they are still milling about. It still is very much an active scene, as Shannon just mentioned. They just tweeted out not that long ago that they are still out there at an active scene. And again, we don't know the details of what went on, other than we know that they are telling people to stay away because they're still trying to assess the situation there. But they have relaxed a bit, and instead of being in a defensive mode as they were earlier. But we saw them all around that, all over that store, on the roof, on the ground, and multiple crews from all over the metro assisting with Boulder police in this.
And we hadn't seen what we just our camera just picked up there before. We have not seen them putting away gear, which we just saw one of those men just put away one of the shields that they were 2 or 3 men behind each shield. They're approaching that earlier. They just put that shield away. And so the mood has definitely changed, at least right outside the front of the building. but they're not going anywhere.
No, this is still a very, very scary scene. And as we heard from that young man, he is clearly shaken up. And anyone, you know, associated with what went on inside that store, you just know that they are very unsettled, to say the least, of what they heard and saw inside that store. And I'm sure that's part of what they're assessing right now. Is it does appear that they are somewhat packing up, Shannon, but they still have a lot of people to talk to
Yeah.
and try and get a full understanding about what went on this afternoon at
And
this King Soopers in Boulder.
And if you could put yourself in the shoes of those people, the shoppers, the employees, when something like this happens, we learn about all the details afterward when we know everything and how it happened. But when it's happening in the moment and you hear what everybody knows what a gunshot sounds like, unfortunately nowadays, you don't know who has that gun. You don't know where it's coming from. Every footstep, every sound could be the bad guy, could be the person that you want to avoid. It is terrifying. And that poor young man who Addie was talking to, he is going to be dealing with this. His friend Mason, you know, if he was hiding back in the storage room, you don't know if the next sound you hear is someone trying to open the door where you're hiding. It's just terrifying for all involved, even if you are fortunate enough not to be physically harmed. It is just such a tough thing.
And it's just terrifying. It just is terrifying for all of these people, even for the neighbors, you know, those
Right.
folks who probably go in there on a regular basis and know that store very well. But it's a terrifying scene for anyone to have to live through. And again, you know, as they've gone in that store to try and assess things, they don't know if they're dealing with one person with a gun.
Right.
They don't know if there are multiple people in there. And
Man,
so
woman, child,
this
you
is
just
not a,
don't know.
yeah, it's not a simple operation of, oh, okay, we have one person in custody and we're done. That is not at all the situation that they are dealing with right now. And again, that is why you see so many people, so many SWAT officers and police officers and emergency vehicles and people with long guns out there just trying to assess and keep the community safe. I
Yeah.
mean, this is their job right now, so we have to let them do their job. And again, there are videos out there, there are rumors out there, and our job is not to share any of those rumors until we can hear specifically from the Boulder Police Department about what exactly has happened inside that store.
All right, so this large contingent of these SWAT, I guess for lack of a better term, we have not seen this before. They were all generally they get to and from the immediate scene by just hanging on. They all jump on, and that takes them. It looks like if we could take a quick look, it looks like they were actually moving out and putting things away right now. So let's hope that is what's going on. I'm sorry,
All right, let's
John,
get
what'd you
that.
say?
Yeah, if we can get that video once again, or that live picture once again, so we can see the front of the store out there and get a better assessment of what that SWAT team was doing. There we go. So it does look like, Shannon, they might be preparing, or at least some of the SWAT teams preparing to leave at least the front of that store area. We don't really know specifically what is going on as we speak, but
Okay.
that seems to indicate right now that they might be clearing the scene.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we are, 4:30 right now. Instead of Denver 7 News at 4, this is special coverage from Denver 7 of an active shooting at King Soopers. We don't know how many injuries. All we know is that there are injuries. We have seen for ourselves an apparently bloodied man, handcuffed, being put into an ambulance with law enforcement and taken away to a nearby hospital. We have heard firsthand reports of sounds of gunfire inside that King Soopers. This is Table Mesa and Broadway there in the south part of Boulder. And we've heard reports of people, our colleagues at the Denver Post, our partners, reported one man saying they were jumping out the loading dock near the meat department when this started. And then we heard the friend of the young man we spoke to, an employee named Mason there, was hiding inside during all this is going on. So we are waiting any moment for some facts here to back up what we've seen dribs and drabs of.
Right. And as you watch these pictures from outside that King Superstore, you know, we've told you that we have several crews out there on the ground. And one of our reporters, CB Cotton, is saying that a detective on scene told her that there are at least 15 agencies on the scene right now, and they are still waiting on the briefing, thinking that it could happen within about an hour. And she goes on to say that this detective told her their priority with an event of this size is victims and victims' families. That is a quote. Don't know what that means specifically, because we're waiting to get some specific information from that briefing. But again,
Yeah.
these are all pictures that we have shown you throughout the afternoon of from Air Tracker 7. This is video that was shot earlier in the day of that crew going in defensive mode.
Yeah, very important, because we are not seeing anything like that right now. But you can see the intensity. Those personnel walking behind the shields. Sloan Dickey, one of our reporters, or many reporters out on the scene, just outside the barricade. Any update on when we're going to get information from the PIO?
Yeah. We haven't gotten information yet from the PIO. We have just been walking around, chatting with people that witnessed this. And I'm going to take you over here to two people that were inside of the store, and they heard some of these shots. And I just want to get right into this. So if you could just let me know, what did you see when you were inside?
So we were just a normal day at the store, just going in and getting mushrooms and milk. And we were separated at first, but I just heard a big bang. And I was like, it's kind of weird. Like, I didn't know if it was like a gunshot or whatever, but it was like probably 3 seconds before we heard another, just like bang, 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 bang. And I immediately sprinted over to her and was like, hey, we got to get out of here, and like pushed open the emergency door. And I like told her to run, and I ended up leaving her, which she really hated, but I went back and just was by the exit, just making sure that people were getting out. Cause I remember seeing like an older woman that was there, and I was like, yeah, come here. Like, I don't even know if she like heard the gunfire, but she was like in shock. She was just in crazy shock. And yeah, like I think it's just like eye-opening for everybody. I think it really just like convicts us a lot, because like we really want to share the gospel with people and like share Jesus and like the love that he has for people. And like, we just never know when they're going to go. Like, we could walk past someone during the day and they could die later on that day, and like they didn't know who God was, you know.
Did you
and
see the shooter?
No, we didn't see him, but we
Wait,
saw
we're gonna-
people like running towards us, like towards the back, because I think that was the safest place. But we did talk to someone that was at the front that had just walked in, and
Saw someone go down.
he said that he saw someone go down. And yeah, it's just a terrible thing. But
What do you remember after the gunshots and that when you
Yeah.
were running out? What do you remember seeing?
so she ran off. I told her just like get the heck like miles away from here. And I stayed like in the back area, like where a ton of people were coming through, because I was like, dang, this guy could like come out and start shooting these guys. I want to make sure they're like as far away as they can be. And so another guy named Michael, he was great, he was lovely, but we were helping people get away. And I remember seeing more people run away, the cops coming up, like their response was awesome. Like, thank God for these guys.
How fast would you say it was until police arrived?
It's probably
Probably like
2 minutes.
2
Yeah,
minutes
2.5 minutes.
or maybe less. Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody really just has a moment to think about their hearts and where they're at with God, and just to know that like Jesus loves them and
How many
is crazy about them. I don't know.
We're not quite
we
sure.
saw a live stream of a couple of people on the ground. I think there's like around 10 that we saw like on the live stream. There was like 4 in the parking
like
lot.
in
but-
the front of King Supers, and then there were some like in like.
Last
the parking
question.
lot.
Yeah, of course.
Now you're out here witnessing this.
Mm.
What's going through your mind right now?
Pretty much the only reason we came back is because we wanted to just sit up there and pray for everybody. Because I know that like this can be such a scary thing without God. Because people don't know where they're going unless we tell them about it. Like, if they die tomorrow, they don't know if they're gonna go to hell or if they're gonna go to heaven. But yeah, and we also came out just to comfort people. We just want them to know that they're safe and that Jesus is with them. So that's what we're thinking about.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really
of course.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
So that was just two people that were inside the store. Quite an emotional story for this newly married couple. But this is just one of the stories that we've kind of been hearing from people outside the store. Back to you guys.
So thank you for that. And again, we don't have any confirmation from police as to what went on inside that store this afternoon. And in fact, again, some of the videos that are circulating out there, police are asking people not to share those right now, as it just puts them in a compromising situation as they try to understand and assess what went on inside that King Super store today.
And today is a good day for faith. So we appreciate
Absolutely.
that young man, what he had to say. And it looked like when we zoomed in our camera from here, it looked like buses were starting to arrive and line up nose to tail outside. I don't know if those are if those are buses coming up to take people who are inside away, because they'll want
Hey,
to
John.
be debriefed as we watch a drone. I assume that's a police drone. I hope that's a police drone. Yeah, landing there. So we're still waiting to figure out what happened. And again, please, all that's unconfirmed. We don't know how many injuries or the severity of injuries or who exactly has been injured. But definitely the mood has changed as far as officers rushing and arriving. That's just not happening anymore.
And to your point, Shannon, what we've seen, sadly, we have experienced shootings here in Colorado before, and what we have seen is, yes, they will bring in buses and take people from those situations so that they can ask them questions. They can really get a better assessment of what went on inside, and really get a full understanding of what they witnessed, who saw what, and to try and figure out if there was one person with a gun or multiple people with a gun, and just try to get a better understanding. So that is not uncommon from what we have seen in other shootings, sadly, here in Colorado over the years.
All right, we are still waiting official word on what exactly happened around about 2:30 here at the King Supers. Those of you who know Boulder know this area quite well. Table Mesa and Broadway, very busy area. You wouldn't expect it to be too busy a time at King Supers, but if King Supers are open, there's going to be folks inside. And we are hearing individual accounts of gunfire inside and people running and hiding. We don't know how many shooters there were. We do know, because we saw a person being taken into custody who appeared to be injured. We don't know his role in this, if there was any. We assume he was at least there when they handcuffed him and took him away in an ambulance to a nearby hospital right now. But all this is just pieces surrounding the official core of what happened that will come hopefully at any minute. But we have seen so many agencies, which also is another indication of the seriousness and severity of this, that you've got federal agents on down to surrounding counties and Boulder County and Boulder City PD as well.
And just to think about the extent of how many people an incident like this touches. We listened to that one young man, Andrew Hummel, who was, his friend Mason was working at the store. He was inside the store, but his friend Mason was working there. Yeah. And then later texted all of his friends saying that this was one of the biggest, scariest texts that he'd ever seen, when his friend texted out, "I love you guys. Thank you for everything in case things go bad." I mean, can you imagine being on the receiving end of a text like that and not knowing what is going on with your friend inside a store? And so it's just a very unsettling situation, and far-reaching, the impact of something like this. And again, that is why we are very careful in what we share with you. We try and wait for official word, because we just don't want to spread any misinformation at all until we hear from Boulder Police.
And we do know from ABC News reporting about an hour and a half ago that according to them anyway, that it started outside, that someone was shot, was their initial tweet, someone was shot in the parking area, that when police arrived to that, police were fired upon, and then we're off to the races. That's when it really started going, and police started arriving by the droves. Now, obviously, that was outside. We don't know when and how the activity inside began and by whom. And we're certainly hoping and praying that they were not civilians and staff and shoppers who were hurt in all of this. So we're all holding our breath for the very best possible news.
Absolutely. But what we can tell you is there was a huge police presence at this King Superstore. So they took it very seriously from the moment the first calls went out, and that was just after 2:30 this afternoon at this Boulder store. And we saw, in fact, it just felt like it was a huge police presence like we had not seen before. So people mobilized very quickly, SWAT teams, sheriff's departments, fire departments, and so on, to get out to this King Superstore, and they had it surrounded in no time. And we were able to share that with you just by judging from the aerial view from Air Tracker 7, so that you could see for yourselves what kind of a presence police had out there. And once again, it wasn't that long ago that police said this is still an active scene, and they just want people to stay away. They just need people to stay away right now as they try to assess what went on in that store. At last, we heard that there could be a debriefing by police. Maybe about 15 minutes ago, they said it would happen within an hour as they work to talk to the people who were inside that store. And so we're hoping and praying that that all happens soon, and that it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, and we don't know what they mean by active scene, because if this is all wrapped up and over and done, just think of the time and effort it's going to take to have all these law enforcement leave, and so they need to get out of there. So we don't know if that's what they meant by active, or if there still was that whoever this shooter is, you know, is still out there. That does not seem to be the case. However, in the last 45 minutes, that does not at all seem to be what we are seeing right now.
But what we know is that our crews out there on the ground have talked to a few people who were inside that store, and they have some very unsettling stories to tell about what they heard and what they witnessed. And so this is a really long afternoon for a lot of folks as they try to assess, how they could have been inside a grocery store on a Monday afternoon, and then to hear shots ring out. It truly is a heartbreaking situation.
Yeah, and forgive us for the less than polished approach right now, but I'm going to ask our producer right now. Earlier, Addie Guajardo was talking to that young man, and she was going to try to get Mason, the employee, on the phone. Do we know if that has happened? If we have access to that? No luck to that. Okay.
All right. I think we do have Sloan Dickey there on the ground, who has been bringing us updates this afternoon. So let's bring Sloan Dickey back in to tell us what he's been hearing as he waits to hear from police as well. Sloan?
Yeah. Well, at first when we arrived, it was a very tense scene, still remains a tense scene, but we're beginning to kind of unveil some layers of what's happened. As you witnessed maybe 10 minutes ago, we spoke with a newly married couple that were inside of the store, and they witnessed what happened. And of course, we can't rely exactly on those eyewitness reports right off the bat, just because it was such a tense situation. However, in the past 10 minutes, situation has remained calm. Police are still outside. We did see some police officers leaving in the last 10 minutes. That does not mean that this scene is not active. It does not mean that the tension has gone down. We're just watching police officers holding at this point in time as we try and figure out what happened and what is happening inside of that King Soopers.
And so, do you know any update on the timing of when the public information officer is going to speak?
I'm just going to look right now on that Twitter feed. We still haven't heard much. We're at the media staging center. We're watching police officers kind of come and go at this point in time. They said about 40 minutes ago that there was going to be some updates on Boulder's Twitter feed, and also from the PIO themselves. And we haven't heard anything just yet. But again, we will let you know when that information comes out.
And Sloan, I know your view is pretty limited there because they are keeping folks way back. But have you seen or heard anything about the people who were inside the store, what their status is, if they've been able to get everyone out of the store just yet?
I can't answer that question. I'm not exactly sure. We have spoken to some people who were in the store and ran out. Now, the one issue that I'm not clear on just yet is if there are more people or they have been releasing people out of that store at intervals. We did see, some people walking out of the store maybe 40 minutes ago. We're not sure exactly what the strategy is. I don't want to speak to that just yet because we haven't received that information, but I'm sure as soon as the PIO gives that information to us on the status, we'll be sure to kind of understand what's going on and relay that information across.
We are all actively waiting to hear what the Boulder Police Information Officer has to say this afternoon so that we can get a clearer picture of what has happened in Boulder, Colorado on a Monday afternoon. So Sloan Dickey will let you keep your eyes and ears open there on the ground as we wait and watch and keep watching these views from our crews that are on the ground. But again, you heard Sloan say that there are some crews that are starting to leave, but the police presence is still strong out here at this King Soopers.
Very strong. And also, have we had an update, this is again for the booth, on when we will have access again to Air Tracker 7? For those of you who are just joining us.
Do interviews and we can
Air. What is this? It's like,
We're just watching as along with everybody else to try and figure out what is happening, what has caused them to scramble, these police officers to scramble away from the store, not sure where they're headed at the moment.
yeah. So this is a live picture from our crew on the ground. I don't know if they're going. They're not getting in their vehicles. They're still going. Yeah, we don't know what's happening. This is the immediate aftermath of the active shooter situation at the King Supers. This is a group of police officers now running toward those. Are those apartments? What are we looking at there, Sloan?
Sloan, are you able to
so
see?
just to the right of the camera angle is an apartment building. You can see me standing here. To the right is an apartment building. We're not exactly sure where these police officers were going. If James, our camera person, just wants to get an image of this, I mean, this is the street across the street from the King Supers parking lot, and it is still jam-packed with police officers. So we're not exactly sure where they're heading, but if you just want to take a look at this view right here, there's probably 30 police officers just in this street alone, and we probably saw 20 police officers, SWAT officers, heading in that direction away from King Supers. They ran right past our media staging area into the street right next to the King Supers gas station, across the street from where this action happened.
And I'm sure you can't tell, but are they getting into vehicles, going to any kind of a structure? Can you tell?
I cannot tell at this moment. I can tell you that if they were getting into their vehicles, they would have to be parked quite a ways away from the parking lot. It looked as though, in my opinion, as though they were kind of running in that direction that you can see the camera faced in right now. There are police cars parked on that street, Table Mesa Road,
right?
But that's not no. I didn't see any police officers getting into vehicles closer to the building. Okay,
well, hopefully we will learn what prompted that running of several police officers in that direction. In the meantime, we have heard from the King Supers, the union, the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, saying that they are closely monitoring the events unfolding at this King Supers in Boulder, Colorado. And they go on to say that we are praying that all the grocery workers and shoppers today, including our 32 members that work at this store, are safe and unharmed, that they are praying that they are safe and unharmed. That's from the United Food and Commercial Workers.
All right, as we have another chapter of this, we're waiting to figure out what is going on with that group of police officers clearly running, urgently running that way. And what you don't often see, Ann, is that they split the scene, essentially, because on this side of the camera is the King Supers, where the media is being kept away from. The camera, obviously, is where the media is, but then police ran on past the media and are now on the other side. And I don't know, it was hard to tell if they were getting into vehicles and going somewhere, or if they kept on running past that parking area. So it's hard to say. And you know, on the other hand, it could be completely unrelated. Right. They might have need to go somewhere else.
It could very well have been from another jurisdiction as well. So it's hard to say. Plus, at the same time, again, we don't know how many potential shooters were in this situation, that maybe they were running out to a vehicle that belonged to someone suspicious. Right. I mean, there are so many scenarios that could play out here that it's hard to guess why they were running. But yes, they were running away from the store, and so we'll see if we can find out some information about that a little bit later. Let's go to Addie Guajardo, who's been there on the ground as well, talking to some folks who were in that store nearby. Addie?
Well, and I just met Sarah Moonshadow. She's been coming to this King Supers almost every day, lives only about a mile away, and she was inside the store when she heard those sounds go off. Sarah, walk us through what you experienced inside that store.
I just wanted my son to be okay. I knew I was hearing gunshots, and I told him to get down. And there was about 4 shots, at least while we were still standing in the checkout. And I listened for the last shot and started counting. And I just told him, start running now. And he said, no, wait. I said, just run. Don't look, just run. And we ran. We started running, and there was at least 2 shots fired at us as we were running to the front of the store. And Nick was screaming, and we just kept running, and there was a guy laying out in the street. as soon as we got outside, and I started running towards him to try to help him, and my son grabbed me by my coat and said, "No, we can't help him. We got to go." And so we kept running, and we hid behind a stone barrier over here. And then there was the cops started showing up by that time.
Sarah, I'm sure there's a lot running through your head. Let's slow down a little bit, make sure that everybody comprehends. How old is your son? You were shopping
My
with your
son's
son?
21.
21.
Yeah. We had just come in for some lunch because we were doing some laundry over here in the shopping plex, and really didn't think that, this would happen. It's really quiet. It's really mellow. And
Sarah, you said that they were shooting at you. Who was shooting at you? Can you give us a little bit of clarity?
I don't know. I didn't look. I just, 1 second we were hiding down kind of in the self-checkout area. And I just knew, like, this is a problem. And so I started counting in between shots. And then I just grabbed Nicholas. I said, "Move now." And he was scared at first. And I thought he might have hesitated too long. And yeah, the person that was shooting was definitely coming in our direction. And he shot close enough to us that we could feel the concussion stuff.
Did you see that a person with a weapon inside the store?
I just looked at my son and focused. I just didn't want to. I just looked at him and just kept running.
You didn't want to see?
I didn't want to see anything but his face. I just wanted to make sure that he got out okay.
Did you see anybody injured inside the store as you were making your way out?
At that point, I was just focused on making sure that my son was close to me, and then we were running. And then as soon as we got outside, there was somebody laying in the street.
When you say somebody laying in the street, was that person shot, injured, male or female?
It looked like it was a male. Looked like an older male. And he was laying directly right at the stop sign there where traffic goes east and west. He was basically laying right there.
Was anybody helping him?
No, there was nobody around. There was some other people it looked like that might have been laying down over here, kind of in between the entrances. It was harder to tell there, but I had to keep on running.
You sound really emotional right now. I can't imagine the trauma.
I wanted to try to help that guy in the road, and I couldn't because he was just too close, and we had to get away. I didn't know if that guy was going to try to follow us because he shot at us and we were running, and I didn't know if he was going to keep coming towards us or not. So we just kept running, and just trying to make sure that we were out of the way of anything. And then I just started freaking out because my dog is like right directly in front of the entrance where he had come in, and I don't know if he's okay.
Is your son okay right now?
My son is okay, yeah.
You made it out safely?
Yeah. I just focused on making sure that we got out okay. And
you've been living in this area many years. You come to this King Soopers almost every day. You live about a mile away.
Yeah.
Did you ever expect something like this to happen?
No, and I'm just thankful that I didn't have both of my kids with me. I just don't even know if we would have been able to get away in time,
There's multiple police agencies that responded very quickly out here. You're outside of this King Soopers right now, looking back at how many patrol cars are out there at this moment. What are you feeling?
I'm just in shock. I'm in shock. And I'm just glad that we made it out all right.
Well, thank you so much. I know that you're going through a lot right now, so I'm going to let you get some time to cope through some of this and catch some fresh air. Thank you so much for talking to us. Shannon and Ann, we're going to continue gathering more information for you guys and bring you the latest information as we receive it. Reporting live out in Boulder, Addie Guajardo, Denver 7.
Addie, thank you. And thank you to Sarah. And as we talked about earlier, that is one woman's experience, and that is going to be multiplied by every single person who is in there. And I don't want you, this is file video, so this is not going on right now. We are not seeing any sort of still approaches behind barriers or anything like that. This is from earlier in Air Tracker 7. I want to restart right now as we're coming up on 5 o'clock. Ann Trujillo and Shannon Ogden here at Denver 7 with live continuing coverage of a shooting at the King Soopers in Boulder at Table Mesa Road and Broadway. We're still waiting for officially what happened, but we do know there are injuries. We have seen on our live camera someone taken into custody, but even well after that, they were still approaching this grocery store with utmost caution and behind barriers. So reason to think that perhaps that was not the one and only suspect today.
Right. We thank you for joining us for this special edition of Denver 7 News at 5 o'clock as we cover this active shooting in Boulder, Colorado. And you stop and think about it, Boulder, Colorado is considered one of the safest cities in Colorado, if not across the nation. So this is a very, very scary situation still right now in Boulder at this King Soopers. It started just after about 2:30 this afternoon when there were reports of shots fired and multiple crews mobilized to get to this King Superstore at Baseline and or Table Mesa and Broadway to assess what was going on inside. And we saw crews all over that store and on top of the roof and surrounding it to deal with this active shooter situation. I think what's hardest of all is to hear those heartbreaking stories from people who were inside that store, who that woman, Sarah, saw someone and heard someone shooting and was there shopping with her son and ran to get out of that store. And even if you think about it, just as the rest of us who go to these grocery stores, you develop a relationship with those people who work inside. When that's your store, you know each and every one of those employees for the most part. And so this is like a home away from home, so to speak. So very unsettling as we hear some of these stories of what went on inside that King Soopers today.
And if you're just joining us here, though the police presence is still massive, there is not the sense of urgency that we've seen over the last couple of hours of police still arriving and still going into or preparing to go into the building. Though they're still there, it does appear that we have plateaued or at least hit pause right now on an immediate threat. That's not official, but we're just reading. This is not how it has been for the last little while. And as Addie was interviewing that woman, Sarah, who was inside, she said something as she ran out that she saw what she said was someone injured lying in the outside. And that is how ABC News had reported that it had begun, that someone was shot outside in the parking area. And then when police responded to that, the shooter started firing upon officers. So I don't know if he ran inside, but that does make sense with the timeline that we're now being able to piece together about what may have happened today.
Once again, we're waiting on a briefing from Boulder PD to bring us up to date on what has happened this afternoon here at this King Superstore. But if you're familiar with the store, you know that there are several small businesses around it, and our Jason Grenauer has been talking to some of those folks who work in those businesses. Jason joins us. What are you hearing, Jason?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ann Shannon. I've just been calling around to that shopping plaza that's right adjacent within that same plaza, right next to that King Soopers. Most of the businesses that I spoke to basically just said that they locked their doors and they just waited for all of this to play out. Now, there is one pharmacy in that shopping plaza that I spoke to. They didn't want to have their voices recorded or answer any questions on camera, but they said at this point, they are still locked down in that pharmacy with shoppers from that King Soopers still inside, because when this all happened, a lot of those people, those shoppers inside, as we've heard throughout the afternoon, ran out. Some of them ran into these nearby businesses. They locked the door. They've simply been waiting ever since. Now, the good news, I called around about 8 or 9 businesses. Everybody so far has said that everyone within those businesses is okay. They simply had the doors locked. And now they are just waiting for this police presence, as Boulder police have tweeted just within the last few minutes, that it is still a very active scene, not far from, the front doors of that King Soopers. Now, while we have you here, you were speaking about a timeline, and we've been following this since the very beginning. We broke in on our Denver 7 streaming apps earlier on this afternoon. So just to kind of get you caught up on this timeline, 2:49 p.m. was when that first tweet officially came out from Boulder police saying that there was an active shooter at the King Soopers on Table Mesa and for people to avoid the area. Shortly after 3 o'clock, we got a statement from state law enforcement saying that Boulder police were called to an active shooter report in the parking lot of the Table Mesa King Soopers. When they arrived, they were fired upon and there were injuries, the extent of which we don't know. And at this point, we still do not know the extent of those injuries. Shortly after 3:15, we saw police officers on the roof of that store raised up there from a fire truck as we saw footage from Air Tracker 7 ahead. Then we got some footage from our partners over at ABC News of the front of that store, police using some kind of loudspeaker saying the entire building is surrounded, you need to surrender. 3:30 in the afternoon. This was a key time frame in all of this. That's when Air Tracker 7 saw a man, shirtless, shoeless, injured on one of his legs, escorted out of that King Soopers. He was taken into custody. He was placed in handcuffs and put in the back of an ambulance. At around 3:45 or so, that ambulance then arrived at the hospital. We have a crew there, and we will be updating you as soon as we learn more from that. At 3:50, we still saw officers on the scene with their guns drawn. A few moments later, people then running out of the store, what appeared to be shoppers that were then escorted away. Now, throughout the afternoon, we've seen this kind of de-escalate. As you can see the live picture there on the right side of your screen, some SWAT officers actually walking away. We've seen some SWAT vehicles drive away from the scene, yet that SWAT vehicle remains there. This is going to take quite some time. Again, this all started at 2:49. Some businesses in the area still on lockdown, and we're still trying to learn more as we wait for that news conference from Boulder Police. And Shannon?
Jason Grenauer, thank you for that. And just one other note, Governor Polis has tweeted out a message saying, like my fellow Coloradans, I am closely watching unfolding events at King Soopers in Boulder. And he goes on to say, my prayers are with our fellow Coloradans in this time of sadness and grief as we learn more about the extent of the tragedy. And that is what we are waiting on right now, to hear from Boulder Police, the extent of this tragedy that happened on a Monday afternoon in Boulder, Colorado. Again, one of the safest cities in the state, as we wait and watch and monitor what police officers are doing outside that store. But you can see even Denver police cars out there. They also responded to assist Boulder PD. Jeffco sheriffs were out there, fire department was out there, and so on.
FBI even is on the scene. And before we know what did happen, you don't know how much weight to lend to a word like tragedy. It's a scary word, and you have to assume the governor is getting some early information from the top law enforcement on the scene. But that's the first time we've heard that word used when the governor tweeted that out. So we certainly are hoping for the best when the smoke has cleared. But it's a very different scene right now. 6 minutes after 5 o'clock outside the King Soopers. Police officers are leaving the inside of the building. They're not leaving the perimeter. They're still all over that area there at Table Mesa and Broadway, but they're not rushing in any longer. We've seen at least one of the armored vehicles leave with a lot of law enforcement personnel. And then we also saw another cluster of law enforcement leave. So that to me is good news that they're not still worried that things are still going on. The tough part now, Ann, becomes the waiting to see really what happened in there. Exactly. And the severity of the injuries and how many people were hurt.
Well, and we do know that people have exited the store. We know that we have spoken to a couple of people who were customers inside that store. Addie Guajardo spoke with the woman named Sarah, who she told Addie that she counted at least 6 gunshots while she was in that King Soopers store. And again, she said that she saw a man injured in the middle of the street. So all that we are hearing right now is just from people who were inside the store, but they have been able to leave the store, which I suppose to some degree is a sign of progress, that they've been able to exit the scene of what went on in there. And again, we still don't know, because police are saying that it's an active scene. We don't know if they're talking about an active shooter or active shooters. We do not know that situation, other than to tell you what we saw and what we showed you with a man who was taken from that store in custody. And in fact, if we have that video that we can show you once again of the man who was taken out of that store, he was shirtless, he was shoeless, and he had some blood running down his leg. And that is the extent of what we've seen. Andy was in police custody, and there you can see on the right side of your screen that video of the man who was taken outside of that store. What that means, we don't know. Again, we don't know if there was one person or multiple people involved in this, but it leads you to believe he could possibly be a suspect because he was handcuffed and taken in police custody.
But even after that, what gets complicated is even after this scene, after they take him away, there was still another 45 minutes, an hour of that they were still they were not finished with whatever was going on, or whatever they were careful or fearful was perhaps going on. They were still going inside King Soopers. They were still behind cars. We saw a group of police officers after that man was taken into custody, still hiding behind their squad cars for protection. Right now, we are also waiting for to get Air Tracker 7 back. It was asked to clear the area by Boulder County Police. Sloan Dickey has been out there talking to people affected as we stitch together from firsthand accounts exactly the terrifying scene that unfolded inside the store there.
Let's go to Sloan Dickey now. Yes, Sloan.
Yeah, and we're standing on Broadway, it looks like right now, and we're just kind of watching the scene unfold. I can tell you the street had about double probably the amount of cars that it has right now. This whole area behind me, if you can look at this lane here, it's been cleared. So some police officers have left the area. The last time that I went live with you guys, you saw a bunch of police officers kind of jogging past me this way over to a parking area to my left. And so the scene has kind of de-escalated on this side, as we can see, and there's some SWAT officers to my right that appear to be kind of getting into their vehicle. Things have been tense here, but have been holding for a while. And so yes, we have been speaking with people who were inside
Sloan,
the store. They are watching. They're paying attention.
Boulder Police just tweeted out just 5 seconds ago, an emergency notification just went out. Boulder Police asking people near 17th and Grove to shelter in place while they report to an armed individual. They're trying to figure out if this is related to the King Soopers shooting. And I know you know this area, 17th and Grove. I'm not sure where that is from Table Mesa. Not to put you on the spot, I'm going to try to pull this up, but I don't know if.
Yeah.
So we're hearing that's about 3 miles from that King Soopers store, that location. So we don't know.
And I can't speak specifically to what that means, but I can say that may have something to do with why we saw some police officers leaving, and we have seen some police cars leaving as well. I don't know about the situation, as you just mentioned. The tweet was sent out maybe just seconds ago, so we're not exactly sure what that is, but that's behind me. That location is behind me some ways, so that's not necessarily in this location right here. That might be a reason why some of these officers, as you might just see in a few seconds, some police officers are leaving here as well.
Yeah, that was literally 1 minute ago that was tweeted out by Boulder Police Department. So Sloan, we will check back with you again shortly. Again, these are just images that we want to share with you from this afternoon. This is not a live picture right now. These are just images that we have seen happening outside the King Soopers store. He was talking about that SWAT crew, or that the emergency responders leaving and running off someplace. We were not clear where they were going, but this is what we believe was happening at the time that they are going to that 17th and Grove location, where they have told people to shelter in place right now on a report of an armed and dangerous person.
All right, and this is this is like 27th-ish, right around, as far as the numeric streets. So I'm trying to get an idea of how far away 17th would be from this this immediate scene that we're seeing from there.
My understanding is about 3 miles away from that
so it is a ways.
location. So it's not
nearby,
that close.
And it might not be related. We're just trying to.
And I will also say that I'm just now seeing that Boulder Police will have a news conference at 5:45 p.m. in front of, at 5:45 p.m. and give us an update. So we're still a good half hour away from getting an update from Boulder PD. So ideally, we will learn a whole lot more information there about what is happening in Boulder, Colorado at the King Soopers store, that grocery store, and what is happening at that 17th and Grove location where they've told people to shelter in place right now. So clearly this is still a very active situation, a very fluid scene. And you can see from the map there, it gives you a pretty good idea of the distance between the two. But, as you drive into Boulder from the Denver area, that King Soopers is pretty close at the, as you're driving into the Boulder area. So you probably have seen it or driven past it before. And you can see the police activity, the 17th and Grove location, a good 3 miles away.
So before they give us the official version of what happened, we have been speaking to people who were inside there getting getting firsthand accounts of what happened. Each of them have a different story, each terrifying right now. The Denver Post also just put out a story, another one, that said the gunman came in and didn't say anything and just started shooting. So that small account right there it makes your blood curdle. We heard from that poor woman, Sarah, being so terrified to just be at the self-checkout counter there at Supers, King Supers, and hear shots fired. She's in there with her son. And just want to run, and all the people. We heard another couple of folks who were in the back of the store in the meat department running out there and running out the loading dock to get to safety. So many stories of terror and survival here at King Supers
And
today.
the young man whose friend worked inside that King Superstore that sent his friends a text saying, "I love you guys." So it's just again just a heartbreaking situation of what we have been watching this afternoon, and we still don't know the entire story of what went on. But again, we do know that news conference is happening at 5:45 p.m. and we promise to bring it to you right here live on Denver 7 News just as soon as that happens. We know there are 15 agencies that have been out there assisting today, so this was a very scary and big scene that police called in all their resources to be able to help them with this situation. Again, that started just after 2:30, well, 2:49 to be exact, when the first calls went out of an active shooter situation at this King Supers. And this is file video from Air Tracker 7 from earlier in the afternoon, where you can see all of the emergency crews that were out there, and they've tried to clear out the traffic around the King Superstore and address some of the people who were inside the store and talk to them about what they saw and what they heard. And you see all the emergency vehicles, the ambulances out there. And I guess, Shannon, I think the one thing that we have pointed out is that we have not seen any ambulances tearing out of the vicinity, which hopefully it is a good sign, but we don't know. It's
hopefully that is a good sign.
So many unknowns right now.
As we first came onto the air, just around 3 o'clock, there were 3 medical helicopters nearby at the high school. We have not seen any evidence that they were used. As Ann said, we haven't seen ambulances scream out of there, which is always a good sign. Again, that is file video. That is not going on right now. And I also want to just a word of caution, and we're being very careful. Social media can be such a reckless place, especially in events like this. So we're being very careful to confirm what we do know before we're reporting it. So if you get on social media and you are scrolling around, not everything is true. We'll find out what happened, in just a little bit, hopefully in half an hour. But I would urge you to trust reliable sources, including Denver 7. But I know some people, even there were reports people were live streaming from inside, and it's so unknown and terrifying. And I know it's hard not to look at these salacious images, but we're trying to be very careful. And I would urge you to do the same, especially if you have a concern that a family member, a loved one, a friend is inside there, was shopping there today, was working there today. We just don't know at this point the extent of the injuries. We don't know who was injured. We don't know if the gunman or gunmen were injured. We don't know if it was shoppers, if it was employees. We don't know if it was police officers. Though I will say, usually when a police officer is injured in something like this, it's very apparent in the reaction. We did not see that, even though the initial reports were that police were fired upon when they first arrived outside the store there.
And I think that is the most chilling part, is that we have had the opportunity to hear from people who were inside that store, and they have reported someone shooting. So we know that there were multiple shots fired.
Right,
We
not
don't
just
know how
outside,
many,
yeah.
but we just do not know what kind of injuries we are talking about, if any. And to your point, we don't even know how many people were inside that store or how many people were working at that time. So that is why we're waiting on this news conference. And that is also why Boulder police are asking people to not share information that was being live streamed or shared on social media, pictures, images, rumors, because they don't want that to compromise the investigation as they go forward. So we do honor that because we realize this is a very scary situation for a whole lot of people.
It is, and you think about who's in a King Supers, Ann, and at 2:30 on a Monday. could be mom and little kids. It could be the elderly. It could be so many people, and that's who's always at a King Super. So that's who was inside, just folks, just trying to shop when something like this happens. And so there's going to be so much trauma for even people who were not hurt, because it is something no one ever wants to live through, and that will how you experience. I'm sorry.
We're going to go to Jason Grenauer
Okay.
right now. Back to because we know more about a second scene, Jason, at 17th and Grove. So tell us what you're hearing about that.
Yeah, so the tweet came out from Boulder Police just a few moments ago that the emergency notification, most likely one of those reverse 911 calls, went out to people in the area of 17th and Grove as police respond to, quote, the report of an armed, dangerous individual. They're investigating to see if this is related to the King Supers. But just to give you an idea of where this is, 17th and Grove is between Arapahoe Avenue and Canyon Boulevard up 17th, about 3 miles due north. If you follow that up, you can see it right there on the map. It's also only a block away from Boulder High School. It's just north of the University of Colorado campus at Boulder, up there in Boulder. So obviously a reason for concern. It's a pretty residential area when you look at Google Maps, other than the gas station and the pizza place that's just about a block away, kitty corner from Boulder High. So that is where we have a crew on the way there as police are responding. They're asking people to stay inside. They've been asking people to stay inside near this King Supers all afternoon. We've seen a lot of people, just kind of people on the other side of police tape watching, because of the potential of this situation for not being done as we had all hoped it would have. That's why police are continuing to ask people to stay inside. If there was an individual that potentially went from the King Supers, those 3 miles north, and there's people just outside on the side of the road, this potentially armed individual, there could be some problems here. So we are trying to pass this information along from Boulder Police. If you live in the area, really anywhere around the vicinity of Boulder, to stay inside right now as police continue to look for a potentially armed individual, potentially connected here. Again, at this 17th and Grove, just between Arapahoe Avenue and Canyon Boulevard there in Boulder. Guys.
Right. Jason Grenauer, thank you very much for that. We also, a big question is one of the things that Air Tracker 7 captured live hour and a half ago is a man being arrested at the scene, shirtless, shoeless, no socks. He had apparently, it looked like blood on his right leg. He looked like to be in some pain, but he was walking himself. We don't know his role, if any, in all of this. Right now, in fact, this is the file video of that right there. A very dramatic scene that our very sharp camera operator captured from Air Tracker 7.
And we do know that they took him to an ambulance and took him to, I think it is Boulder Community Health. And so we know that he was taken away, again, in handcuffs. We know that police officers went on that ambulance with him. So clearly he was able to walk on his own, but as you described, blood on his right leg and on his hands as well. So again, we know that eyewitnesses have told us that there were a shooter inside. Again, we don't know specifically how many people we're talking about. And I think that this whole concept of the 17th and Grove location indicates that there are two places, or two scenes, I guess I should say. So possibly there is someone else involved. We don't know that. So that is why that Boulder police are telling people to shelter in place near that 17th and Grove location, also around the King Supers right now. They're still trying to tell people to stay out of the area, and they've pretty much cleared the area. This is a live picture right now, in fact, of the area. I believe this is around the King Superstore. Is that correct? From our producers? Yes, this is around, okay, near the Whole Foods there in Boulder, which is where the media briefing is going to happen here soon. But again, just looking at this picture, you can see all of the emergency vehicles that are still
And
out
how many
there. It was
different
a
agencies?
massive site out there. And I think, what did we say? There were 13,
15,
something like that.
Because there's Jeffco right there. We've seen Boulder County. We've seen
Denver.
We've seen State Patrol there. We've seen the feds. We saw FBI jackets up near the front of the scene as well, Denver police. So, you don't call in that much backup for nothing. So, and I right now, just all of our hopes are that that the civilian civilian injuries here will be zero or minimal, but we just haven't heard
We
yet.
just don't know. And we have just recently heard from the governor. Again, this was just a couple minutes ago where he said, my heart is breaking as we watch this unspeakable event unfold in our Boulder community. We are making every public safety resource available to assist the Boulder County Sheriff's Department as they work to secure the store. And literally that was just, looks like that was just 5 minutes
5
ago
minutes ago, yeah.
that he tweeted that. So if that is an indication, they have not yet fully secured the store. So the governor, just like the rest of us, watching, waiting, and hoping certainly for the best out of this situation.
Yeah, and I'm growing, more troubled by some of the language that the governor is using, and his concern, because again, he's obviously getting different channels of information than the public is getting at the moment, and I hope this, I just hope this isn't going to be as bad as it certainly could be.
I think we are all hoping and praying for the best right now as we wait and watch. Again, we know that a news conference will happen here at 5:45, so not too much longer that we have to wait and hear from Boulder PD when they will finally be able to give us some updates. Again, this started just after 2:30, about 2:49 to be exact, inside the King Superstore. And we are still waiting for specific details about what went on. But what we have heard from those eyewitnesses who were inside has been very chilling. The fact that there was a shooter inside that store, we've heard that from multiple people now. And
that there were multiple shots fired. That has been one thing consistent, not the number of times. I think the woman, Sarah, she said she counted 6. And we've heard from everyone we've spoken to that there were multiple shots fired. And so that is the one consistent thing, is though if this did start outside, it certainly continued on inside the King Superstore right now. So.
And this is so troubling for Coloradans. I mean, especially Coloradans. I know this is something that is troubling for all, but the fact that we have had multiple shootings in our state, multiple mass shootings, I think is very unsettling for people here who, whether you live close by or, 50 miles away, it is still a Colorado event that leaves you shaken and leaves our community shaken. So that is, again, why we are very, very careful in the information and the pictures that we bring you today as we wait and work to bring you facts about what is happening in Boulder.
And it's tragic. Sadly, this is familiar. I mean, even in the years you and I have been working together, Ann, we've gone through this, and I know you've done many more prior to that here in Colorado, and I hate how familiar it is. I hate how familiar this scene is, especially familiar for Coloradans, as we all wait and pray and cross our fingers and hope for the best of what is going on inside that King Supers there.
And particularly when we're talking about places of safety, when we're talking about, you should be able to freely shop through a King Supers on a Monday afternoon, or send your kids to school, or go to a movie. These should be safe zones, and and it's so troubling and so unsettling for Coloradans as we see these images once again at this situation in Boulder, Colorado.
So it looks like right behind that officer who was directing traffic, they put some buses. I don't know if they're from the university. I couldn't tell. Looks like buses are lined up out front, and oftentimes in situations like this, the people who were inside, who will turn out to be witnesses or just who were there, will be put onto those buses and taken away and interviewed by police. I see Addie Guajardo. Is she ready to speak to us there?
I can hear you, John.
Hey, Addie, it's
Can you
Ann
hear
and
me?
Shannon. Yes. Are you able to hear us and can tell us any new information you've learned? Go ahead, Addie.
Well, Ann and Shannon, it's still, everybody's pretty tight-lipped. We're just waiting for Boulder police to really brief us on exactly what happened. I spoke here to Sarah Moonshadow, and she did tell me that she did see a person that was injured in the middle of the road. We haven't had that information completely confirmed through Boulder PD, so we're waiting to learn more information, but still a very active scene. Take a look behind me There's dozens of police cars and several agencies out here right now securing the scene. One of the people that was inside the store tells me she's still waiting for her vehicle. A lot of them are still in that parking lot. I spoke earlier today with a shopper, Andrew, and he was inside the store. He says the moment he heard a gunshot go off, he ran to the back of the store. His friend Mason also works at this King Super. His friend Mason was in the break room when he heard one of the gunshots go off. We did a phone interview with him, and Mason was telling us the first reaction was just to shove people and get people into any shelter that there was available in that break room. He told us that he sent out a text message to family and friends telling them how much he loved them because he wasn't even sure he was going to make it out of this King Supers alive. A very tense situation. A lot of people out here highly concerned about what happened inside. The thing that I keep hearing time and time again from these people I've spoke with is what a traumatic event. But Andrew did say police responded quickly and efficiently to this scene and got them to a safe place as necessary. Again, we're still waiting. We've been hearing from Boulder PD that they're going to be holding a news conference the last couple of hours. We have yet to hear any new details on that. We know Governor Jared Polis is closely watching this unfold as we learn more information and sending out prayers to anyone who may have been injured in this situation. So still learning more about what exactly happened inside the King Supers. The people we have spoken to haven't been able to tell us if they have seen anyone injured other than Miss Sarah Moonshadow, who says she saw someone in the middle of the street laying. She believes that individual is dead. We have not confirmed through Boulder PD any deaths. We do not know if the person that she did see injured in the middle of the road, if that was somebody who was actually in King Supers or was related to this active shooter situation. So just a lot of questions right now. We're really hoping CU Boulder, Boulder Police can answer those questions and we can get that information to you as quickly as possible.
So Addie, from what you can see, I know.
And I'm going to send it back to you guys.
Just a couple of things from scene setters to help us understand what's happening there at this moment. There were several buses, and I don't know where those buses were from where you are, but could you see who was getting on the buses and if people are already getting on the buses?
Yeah, walk with me, Shannon. And there is 1, 2, 3 buses out here right now. There is no people inside those buses at the moment. The people that I did speak to that were actually at the store got picked up by family or friends. So I haven't seen anybody get into these buses or these buses kind of go anywhere from this scene. There is a number of people, as you can see around me, gathering, kind of watching this heavy police presence out here. This King Super is trying to also gather more details and get a better grasp of what exactly is going on here. But a very tense situation, as you can see. Still many police officers on the scene, and I'm sure they're going to be out here for many, many hours trying to make sure that all the information that they pick up and all the information that they get for everybody that was inside that King Supers, I'm sure that's going to be processed and very closely watched and researched as well.
And Addie, just to clarify, that news conference, there is a news conference happening at 5:45. So we're really just a few minutes away from that news conference happening where we will learn more details. But again, as you look at that scene there, give us an idea of how it has changed because you've been there a couple of hours now, how it has changed over these last 2 hours.
Not a whole lot has changed. Obviously, we saw Jefferson County Sheriff's SWAT individuals leaving the scene a while ago. I haven't seen any ambulances rush out of the scene at this point. You guys also did have that chopper video. I haven't been able to see that, so it's kind of hard to determine from that. But overall, it just seems like they're very tight-lipped, doing the work that they need to do to process all the information that they're finding, and just assessing the scene, because they'll need every piece of evidence they gather inside the store, outside the store, and from everyone that they interview to determine exactly what happened out here today. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions. A lot of people want to know who that individual was that was inside that store, or individuals. It's unclear right now whether it was one person or multiple people that were in that store. So still trying to learn some more information, but you see a sheriff right in front of me with a big weapon. You've seen that all throughout, making sure that nobody crosses that police tape and making sure everybody keeps their distance. And hopefully that press conference would shed some light on all these questions that we have of what happened inside and if anyone has been arrested at this time.
All right, Addie, we sure appreciate that. And as we're getting little bits and pieces of firsthand accounts to help us understand the terror inside. And one more to add to that, our partners at the Denver Post just tweeted out from one of their reporters, Elizabeth Hernandez, that they were there with their father, a 13 and 14-year-old, in the store with their father as their dad was getting his COVID shot. And they say they witnessed people get shot around them and managed to run to a staff area and hide in a coat closet until police rescued them. So that is a store full of terrifying stories and firsthand accounts that we've seen a half a dozen of already this afternoon.
So we are 10 minutes away now from this news conference. We also have our Tony Kovaleski joining us. I believe we have Tony, and Tony has covered, unfortunately, multiple shootings here in Colorado, as well as many of us. And I apologize, we don't have Tony right now, but you know, as we talk about the whole active shooter situation, Shannon, you know, our law enforcement learned so much from Columbine. I think that was one of the big takeaways that our law enforcement really talks about to this day, about how they learned that they needed to get activated quickly and get inside quickly and not wait, because they knew that they just needed to get inside and deal with the situation immediately. And we heard from one of the witnesses say that the police department or SWAT team, whoever it was who went in first, got there very quickly. But just so tragic, some of the stories that we've been hearing over and over again of people who heard the shots, saw someone shooting, and it just is heartbreaking.
And it just strikes me, and it's so unfair, the unfair amount of these things that have happened in Colorado that have allowed police departments here and across the country to learn from. And I just, it's almost, you know, we say it every time, it's unbelievable it's happened here again. It's unbelievable it's happened here again. We're sick of saying it. We said it over and over again, but here it is. It's happened here again. We don't know the extent. I hope and pray that it's not going to be bad. But there are some indications that, you know, we might have some bad news.
It is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, the few details that we have heard so far. And then to also, I mean, here we are looking at this King Superstore, but there is also a second location right now that police are focused on right now, and that is the 17th and Grove location, where they have told people to shelter in place because they are talking about an armed, possibly dangerous individual at 17th and Grove. So this is far from over. I mean, this is still a very active situation that police and all those who are assisting the Boulder Police Department are trying to assess right now, that we have these two very serious scenes right now. So,
and whether they turn out to be connected is immaterial. It's still happening, you know, in two places. That type of fear and terror is going on, you know, with two places within 3 miles of each other. So,
and just one quick note here, I'm seeing from CU Boulder that there are some folks who have classes starting at 5:30 and later, and they have decided to just cancel classes this evening. And I'm sure if you have a student there, they're probably fully aware, but just know that CU Boulder is putting out some alerts about those evening classes, and folks can go to the campus site to talk or to learn more about those details.
All right, our chief investigative reporter Tony Kovaleski now joins our coverage and joins us live from Boulder. You have some new information, Tony.
Yeah, Shannon, and it is difficult news to share. We heard early on this afternoon that it was bad, really bad. Now we have confirmed with multiple state and local high-ranking law enforcement sources that there's now believed to be at least 6 people dead. Difficult news to share for our state, for this community. But again, multiple ranking law enforcement sources confirming to us at least 6 people dead inside that King Supers. And Shannon,
Tony, gosh, just the news we did not want to hear.
Heartbreaking. And Tony, have you gotten any indication from your sources of what is happening at that second location? I know you've been working the phones, but any indication whatsoever? that you can report?
What we are hearing from sources, Ann, is that's believed to be a second gunman location. We have a name. We are running some information right now that we have picked up from sources. But yes, that is an active scene. It is believed that may be the second gunman. That's why they moved quickly to that location. We do have a name, not releasing it now, doing background as we speak. But yes, an active scene that is very, very much of interest for law enforcement at this time. Ann, Shannon?
And Tony, if you don't know this, this is fine. We're just going to talk through some different pieces of information we've gotten. So to confirm, your sources are telling you that all the fatalities were inside the store. First of all, is that accurate?
Let me further clarify. At the King Supers would be a more accurate phrase, because as we know, some of it started outside, some of it went inside. And again, early on, our ranking sources were telling us it was very bad. Now confirming that number of six, at least 6 dead in this shooting.
And then the other question, have you gotten any information about who we saw being arrested and taken into custody? It was a bloodied, shirtless man. Early on in our coverage, we had a live picture of him being taken away to the hospital.
We have been making many calls and had texts throughout the afternoon, Shannon, trying to get that information. Many involved and closely with that information are behind us right now, trying to figure this out and put together the pieces. What we know, though, is that obviously brought into custody there, and then that second shooter, that second location you're talking about, also here in Boulder, of great interest right now. We are monitoring it. We are looking up the name we have to see what we can learn. And as soon as we have something that we can confirm and share, we will. Shannon, Ann?
We know you will, Tony. And if there's anything else that you can bring to us, please jump in anytime. Again, we are less than 5 minutes now, 4 minutes away from a news conference. Thank you, Tony Kopolewski. We will be talking with you more throughout the evening. So again, about 4 minutes away from this news conference that we were expecting. You could see them setting up right now. This is at the Whole Foods area. They've moved the staging area outside the Whole Foods store in Boulder so that we can get an update from Boulder Police Department. You can see all the microphones being set up on that tripod out there, and hopefully we will learn some more specifics. But just again, from our sources, to hear that 6 people have were shot in Boulder today. We are waiting now to hear from Boulder to see what more they can tell us. But again, we still have that second location that investigators still have to work through and figure out if in fact there is a second gunman, a second person, certainly a certain person of interest at that 17th and Grove location. But very, very troubling to hear these details about what's happened here this afternoon.
All right, we were just informed the media briefing now has been pushed back for 10 minutes, so stay with us. We'll get to that briefing just the second they have it, and we'll bring it to you live. But I was so afraid of the number that was going to come out of Tony's mouth there with his reporting, confirming at least 6 people dead. We don't know who those people are, but our prayers are with all the families affected tonight, because there's going to be a lot of people hurting tonight when they receive news of just what has happened inside a King Supers on a Monday afternoon. Just a King Supers. They're just going shopping. This has happened again amidst a year of heartbreak and stress already. We add to this 6 more fatalities. It's almost too much some days.
It really is. And then it just leads to so many questions of who would do such a thing and why, why? And it's just heartbreaking when you think about, you're at a grocery store on a Monday afternoon. This should be easy. And it's turned into another Colorado tragedy. And so many lives that have been changed forever because of an event like this. And even the first responders, I'm sure they feel like, not again. They know they have a job to do, but this is a horrible job when you're talking about another Colorado tragedy like this.
And I wondered, our cameras caught a couple of moments, a couple of instances of officers sort of comforting one another. I won't over dramatize it, but a hand on the shoulder. And I was sort of, wondering, because after, like you said, after you're involved in something like this, that has this worst possible outcome like this, there is some comfort that is needed for fellow officers. And one of the reasons they're so close, such a close knit family. So we saw a couple instances of that. Now, what we also don't know, there's a lot we don't know, but we don't know the number of people injured. We don't know if it is a greater number than the number of people killed. And we don't know if these were people who worked at the King Soopers, if they were shoppers, if these were the so-called bad guys involved in this. We just don't know the identities or anything about who these people who lost their lives are.
And that means that there is so much work ahead for these investigators, for all of these officers who have been called to assist at this King Superstore. So yes, and back to your point, that press conference has been delayed, likely to start at 6 p.m. at this point, but that does not mean that they are not still doing their work inside that store to try and come up with some of those answers, or even that location at 17th and Grove where they have told people to shelter in place just because they don't know what they're dealing with right now with what appears to be two people who may have been shooters involved with this incident outside this King Soopers, or inside this King Soopers, I should say.
All right, it is 5:45 right now here on Denver 7, our live continuing coverage of a mass shooting at a King Soopers in Boulder at Table Mesa and Broadway. I know a lot of you are familiar with that area. We are still waiting to learn how it happened, why perhaps, and who the victims were. And as we wait for official word, which should come close to 6 o'clock, another one of our crews, Denver 7's Gary Broad, joins us in our coverage this afternoon. Gary?
Yeah, Shannon, just a few minutes ago, I just got done speaking to a King Soopers employee who was obviously in there when everything went down, clearly very shaken up. In fact, where we're kind of located right now is middle of the street, but they blocked off this area for the public. They're giving us a little more leeway here with the media, but essentially where those gentlemen were, that the employee is no longer there, but he's been waiting here for a very long time now. Essentially, he feels fortunate from what he was telling me. He feels fortunate he got out, but the thing is, he worked in the seafood section for a year now, and you make a lot of friends. You make a lot, your employees become your friends. He said even a lot of the regulars that he would see at the stores, he doesn't know if they got out. And you hear something like that, and I'll be honest with you, when he told me that, and I could see a little bit of tear coming down his eye, that it gives you goosebumps, because it makes you just you realize how real this is. It's not just maybe the victims, but it's also the people who love them and care for them. And he's been waiting patiently and or impatiently, and depending on probably the minute, just to hear anything from his friends, from his fellow coworkers, from the regulars, to find out if they got out. And that's what he's been doing for quite some time. He also was telling me that when it all went down, he could hear shot after shot after shot. At one point, they were able to get out because one of the managers kind of snuck people in the back. They got him in the back, the back exit there. He said when they did that, the alarm went off, and after that happened, he heard more gunshots. But he was talking about how there was some heroic people there. Another employee also helped to. There was an elderly man who really couldn't walk. He said he was barely able to walk. The employee was worried for the man's safety, so he went out and actually grabbed the elderly man, and got him to safety and got him to the back as well. But in cases like this, you need heroes, and from what he was telling me, there were a couple of his fellow coworkers who stepped up and were heroes tonight. But as you mentioned, 6 have already confirmed dead. I mean, that's something where obviously he's kind of still waiting to find out, what if his friends didn't make it? What if his coworkers didn't make it? So certainly a very real time for him and for so many around here right now. So, yeah, I mean, it's very, very scary. And it's going to be tough, as he mentioned, for him to not think about this. He says he's been replaying it over and over again. So just obviously very beyond difficult situation here.
This becomes Colorado history. This is part of our history now. And these are the kinds of events that people don't forget. Once again, we are waiting on a news conference at 6 o'clock. We aren't going anywhere. We want to make sure that we bring you every fine detail of what happened in Boulder, Colorado this afternoon as they work to assess what happened inside that King Superstore, where our investigators have now confirmed that 6 people died inside that store. And we know that there's a second location, 17th and Grove, where there's a possible second shooter or a person of interest, where they have told people to shelter in place. So again, that 6 o'clock news conference, you see the setup right there. That's at the Whole Foods there in Boulder, where they are setting up and ready to have a news conference, where we know that the Boulder DA Mike Doherty will be there, and the Commander Kerry Yamaguchi will be there as well to hopefully bring us details just as soon as possible. But right now we are counting down, as we know that all the crews are still out at that store trying to assess what went on this afternoon and to try and get some answers for Colorado that is just shocked right now.
We're all just shocked. There are 6 families right now getting news that their loved one is not coming home. All right, let's expand our coverage. We have CB Cotton, but let's go to back to our chief investigative reporter, Tony Kovaleski, who broke that horrible news just a few minutes ago. Tony.
Yeah, Shannon, and here's what we're hearing about that second location. Remember, we saw live here on Denver 7, all those officers taking off about an hour ago out of the location and taking off to another spot here in Boulder. Hearing from now a state-ranking source that his people on the ground have been there. There's some question if that second location is actually a shooter. Many times, as you know, in active shootings like this, they get information, they go looking. Right now, we're hearing that that second location may not actually be a shooter. They're still vetting it. They're still going through some questions. But at this point, we're told from a ranking source that that second location may be a false lead to what might have been a second shooter. So again, a lot of things fluid here. We're waiting for that news conference at 6 o'clock where we can get more things answered. But from what we're hearing right now, that second location is not what they originally thought it might be.
Well, that is somewhat comforting, Tony. So are your sources indicating then they think this was one person who may have been involved as the active shooter? Have they gone
and
so
I
far
apologize, you broke up a little bit there. Could you ask that again?
Have they gone so far as to say that they believe there's only one person as the active shooter?
That's what we're hearing at this point. Again, as you know, you've covered these many times. They get information early on. They start seeking out what they know, and they go to look for individuals. That's what we're told at this point. That's what that second location was. When they got there, they started vetting the information they had. Right now, they believe it may not be a shooter, a second shooter at that location. But again, I think there's still a lot of questioning going on. That could change, but they have lowered the priority of that location. That's what we're hearing from a ranking state law enforcement source.
Tony, let me ask you this. Have you, and I apologize if I asked this earlier, have you heard any indication about how many people were injured if that number is in fact greater than those who have died?
No, and it's a very fair question, Shannon, because of that number that we got earlier. If others were injured or not, the only number we were able to confirm is that number of at least 6 are dead. And again, that came to us from multiple sources, state and local law enforcement, and information that it's worked its way from here to those ranking individuals.
All right, Tony, thank you very much. We'll let you get back and work your sources. We appreciate your information. And I know, you know, what we're all feeling right now. It's just been so long since that has been the worry that is top of mind. We have been so preoccupied with the worry of this pandemic and the response to it, and now the vaccine, and to have to shift back into your mind that, oh yeah, that is also out there.
Sadly, I think it's in the back of people's minds all too often here in Colorado. All right, we want to continue our coverage with CB Cotton, one of our reporters who's also out in Boulder tonight. And CB, bring us up to date on what you were learning out there.
CB,
all right, there? About this scene here on 17th. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah,
go ahead,
yeah,
CB.
We got you.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Well, as you just heard from Tony, a lot is changing about this circumstance, especially the one here on 17th. And of course, it seems every update we get, this situation grows more and more tragic. And certainly our thoughts and our prayers
So
are
I'm heading
with
over
these
to the
victims in this awful
news
circumstance.
conference.
Right now, I want to set the scene here on 17th. I want to step out of the way and give you all a better view. You can see earlier, maybe about an hour or so ago, we saw officers in the armored SWAT car approach these buildings, announce themselves as members of the sheriff's office. And if you look at this back brick building, several of these officers here have their guns drawn. They've had them drawn for the past 30 or 40 minutes. But of course, as we just heard from Tony, information about this scene is changing, and there is word this may not be the location of a second shooter involved in this tragic circumstance. Ann and Shannon, are you all with me?
Yeah, we have you, CB. Sorry about that. Tony's mic was still up, but please continue.
Yes, of course. So as I was saying, for the past 30 minutes, we've seen the law enforcement officers here on 17th go back and forth with various different postures. Right now, it looks like the officer in the very front, if you can see him, he has his gun drawn. There's a few officers behind him. And, he's been in that positioning for the past 30 minutes, almost as if they are waiting to see what's going to happen, waiting to see if somebody's going to walk outside of the apartment. We just aren't sure. But again, about an hour ago, when we first arrived here on scene, we saw all of these armored SWAT vehicles arrive. They announced themselves as the sheriff's office, and then multiple officers went up to the apartment complex, and they started knocking and banging on doors. And we also saw several younger people escorted out of the building. So it definitely seems like law enforcement here on scene want to secure the perimeter and just make sure that nobody else is potentially involved in this that doesn't need to be. But we've been, again, traveling all throughout Boulder today, and I can tell you there are so many police officers, not only here, but also still at the King Supers. Officers in SWAT gear, officers that look to be undercover, carrying long guns. And earlier at the King Supers location, I just want to point this out, kind of the collective shock and grief sweeping its way through this community. That King Supers is less than a mile from a residential area. And I can tell you, as we were driving through, we saw so many people's homes and several people standing on their porches looking to be very concerned. And to be honest with you, it was a look of terror on their faces. In the 21st century, as much as it pains me to say this, the words active shooter have become a worst nightmare for so many. And we definitely saw that on people's faces, and not only near the King Supers location, but also here on 17th as we work to learn more and gather more information about what this scene may be. But as of right now, just a lot of SWAT vehicles, a lot of officers standing in a posture that says we are ready for whatever may happen at any moment's notice. And of course, I tweeted out this earlier on social media. A detective on scene over at the King Supers location told me, he said that the media briefing was top of mind for so many of them, but the first priority was taking care of victims and the victims' families. And again, as Tony mentioned earlier, we now know at least 6 victims in this awful tragedy. And of course, out here on scene, we're trying to gather more details. But as I said, it's every update we learn, it seems as if this gets more sad and more tragic.
I know they have certainly told people to shelter in place at that location where you are, CB. So do be safe right now as you wait and watch and see what is happening at 17th and Grove. Although I guess it is comforting to some degree that we have learned that they were thinking that there was a second shooter involved, and that is no longer the case. But perhaps that's the residence of someone who's involved. So I think we're going to wait and see what we learn from that position as we wait on this news conference as well. CB, we'll check back with you here in just a bit.
Thank you, CB.
We are just literally 2 minutes away now. It seems that we are getting closer to having this news conference that we have been promising you that Boulder Police will be holding. And again, we aren't going anywhere. We are planning to stay on the air to bring this to you because you want information. You want details. You want to understand a little bit more about what went on inside this King Supers today, as do we. And I think that we're all wanting and deserving some answers
Yeah,
today.
and to cut through the clutter that is already cluttering up social media, and to bring you what actually happened. And as CB said, the residents standing outside looking so worried because they're thinking what we're all thinking. Could have been me. Could have been me. And they live right there. That's their store. What if this was your King Soopers? We all have our favorite grocery store, and so everybody's thinking that tonight. That could have been me, and these people did nothing to deserve this. Just go shopping on a Monday afternoon. Again, we don't know if these were shoppers, if these were staff, but this is just life as usual going on a Monday, and this happens. We're 1 minute away from 6 o'clock. I don't know how precise this press conference is going to be. They say 6 o'clock, but they're not always a slave to time that we are in television news. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and sort of reset here as we come upon 6 o'clock. We've blown through world news because we're staying with this extraordinary story that's unfolding up in Boulder, Colorado. Denver 7 special coverage here. Ann Trujillo and Shannon Ogden. We've just learned at least 6 people killed in this mass shooting at this grocery store at Table Mesa and Broadway in Boulder. We don't know the injuries besides that. We do not know who these people are who have died. We do not know the status of the suspect or suspects at this hour.
But what we do know is that we have heard from eyewitnesses who were inside that store and felt the terror of hearing and seeing someone with a gun. And knowing now that we have lost 6 lives in our state is just heartbreaking for the state of Colorado as we deal with another deadly mass shooting here in our state. So
way
again,
too long.
as you saw that picture of the setup for the news conference, which was supposed to happen at 5:45, then pushed back to 6 p.m. We are staying with you so that we can bring that to you live, so you can get the answers that you so badly want. And we know that Police Commander Kerry Yamaguchi will be one of those speaking, as well as a person for King Soopers, a spokesperson for King Soopers, and the Boulder DA Michael Dougherty will also be out there to speak to the news media here any moment now. So we are staying on the air to bring that to you just as quickly and efficiently as it happens.
And the governor also monitoring very closely, sending out his condolences for this, what he called a tragedy, which we now know is nothing short of a tragedy. No matter who these 6 people are, we know the 6 lives at least have been lost. That is reporting from our chief investigative reporter, Tony Kovaleski. There's the tweet, the last one from Governor Polis. Like my fellow Coloradans, Governor Polis says, I'm closely watching unfolding events at King Soopers in Boulder. Of course, he is Boulder is his neck of the woods. He says, my prayers are with our fellow Coloradans at this time of sadness and grief as we learn more about the extent of this tragedy. And we hope any moment we will learn more of the extent of this.
And here's this tweet from Representative Jason Crow, who says, our office is closely monitoring the unfolding situation in Boulder. My heart goes out to the Boulder community as we continue to learn more. And he goes on to say, please avoid the area and allow our first responders to do their jobs. They have a very big job today.
One little bit of reporting that we have not shared with you from our friends at ABC News, reporting that the gunman used a long gun in this. We don't know what exactly, what type of gun or how that happened, but we had not heard that officially yet. So a little bit to add to the story as we fill it out, waiting for official word from law enforcement.
And I think one thing that we have learned what we've learned really since the days of Columbine is that we do have to be careful with the information we share, because this is our community. You know, these are our neighbors, these are our friends, these are our King Soopers workers. And so we really do try to be very careful and not sensationalize in any way the information that is being spread, because much of it is rumor. We know that there are videos out there, and they're horrifying to see at times, and they are jarring, and they can be triggers for others, because we have had other serious events like this in our state, as you are fully aware. And so this is why we try to temper our coverage as well, to bring you the most concise and factual news that we can as we are dealing with a live breaking news situation.
That is such a very good point, Ann. If you think about, okay, we took one interview, that woman, Sarah, who was so upset. She will never, ever, ever forget this. She and her son got out of there okay, physically unharmed. But you think about all the tragedies, and I don't need to list them, of mass shootings here in our state. Every single person who was either there or had a son or daughter or mother or father, they all now are receiving this new information with such in a different way than we could ever imagine. How this possibly could trigger them. I just can't imagine what it's like to watch them or to have them watch this and say this has happened again, and have all those fresh those wounds open back up again today. And there are scores of people just in our community, our friends and neighbors, who are experiencing this so extra painfully tonight.
Yeah, this is life changing. You remember those events. You remember where you were on those days. You remember what you were doing on those days. And this is another one of those events. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. It is just absolutely heartbreaking when Colorado and Coloradans feel like, here we go again. This has happened again in our state. And yeah. And there are no words to describe any of this. So.
Well, some 20 years ago, I was in a workplace shooting, and where we had to hide from the gunman. 20 years later, it still haunts you, and
you don't forget.
You don't ever forget.
No.
It changes who you are, and it just goes on and on and on, and the tentacles of these tragedies that are all over our beautiful community. Tonight, and adding another dark, horrible chapter to that is just, it's just too much tonight.
Yeah, it really is. It's just heartbreaking for our beautiful state. And so, once again, here we are at 6:05, waiting on some more specific details from Boulder Police. They've been promising us a news conference. We realize they have a lot of work. They have so much on their plates right now. So we are patiently waiting, as are you. And although I know we all want information, but it is just another Colorado tragedy that has happened here in our state today, where we know right now that 6 people have passed away in this shooting, and we are still waiting to hear if others were injured, how many were injured, if not, physically, but all of those people who were inside that store. Is, we've talked about this. These are neighbors and coworkers and classmates and roommates and so forth who, you get to know the people who work at your grocery store. This is, in a lot of cases, these people become family. We heard that woman, Sarah, talk about how she and her son went to that King Soopers every week. And, it just becomes a very comfortable place. And so you can see these pictures that all of these law enforcement officers are still there and will likely be there for hours as they try to figure out how and why. And
we'd read one report. You think about, I know everybody's been at home, so many people trying to schedule their COVID shots, and King Soopers has been one of the big individual suppliers of that. We heard that one report that someone was there to get his COVID-19 shot when all this happened. So you have that added bunch of people who were in that store today who weren't shopping. They were there to try to end a tragedy of this pandemic. And as they're there trying to do their part to end it, further tragedy on another plane unfolds.
Dealing with another tragedy. Now, I'm sorry to say that we have just learned that news conference has now been pushed to 6:30. So now 6:30, everybody, that news conference from Boulder PD, they just sent out an update. So we will stay here. We will bring that to you live. In the meantime, we have so many crews out there working to get details on what has happened in Boulder, Colorado on this Monday afternoon. I know we have Addie Guajardo, who's out there and has been there most of the afternoon now. So Addie, what are you learning?
And we've been out here for at least an hour on Table Mesa Drive. And take a look behind me. The police presence has actually increased. We see a fire truck back there, dozens of patrol cars out here, several officers making sure nobody crosses that police tape right now. We have been talking to several people who have been inside that King Soopers when that shooting all unfolded. And all of them just tell us time and time again how traumatic that incident is. And you know what? As a reporter, this doesn't get any easier. I've covered at least 3 mass shootings. And what we're seeing today is a police department that has everything in place as needed as they're collecting evidence. If you look over, I'm going to have Adam zoom in a little bit more. Over at the King Soopers, you could see a number of officers right by those doors. And we're right now still trying to gather information as to what exactly happened inside. And you know what? I want to bring up Sarah Moonshadow's interview. We spoke to her a little bit earlier, and she says when she was running out of the King Soopers, at that point she had counted 4 gunshots. She felt like 2 of the gunshots as they were running out came very close to her and her son as they were seeking to run out of the King Soopers and find some kind of shelter where they could hide. And the thing that really stood out to me is she said, well, while she was running out, she saw a man in the middle of the road. And she said she thought that he was dead. She wanted to go help him, but she couldn't because her son was telling her, we need to flee the scene. We need to worry about ourselves at this moment. And now Tony Kovaleski has definitely been able to work some of his sources and tell us that 6 people have died, at least 6 people. And that individual that Sarah saw in the middle of the street may have been one of those individuals. As we've said, we're still waiting for Boulder police to really fill us in on what happened inside. If it was 1 suspect or 2 shooters inside that King Soopers, that's still very unclear. So we're just trying to talk to as many people as we can to really gather the information of what was happening inside. We spoke to a shopper that was in there. His name is Andrew. He said he ran to the back of the store as soon as he heard that first gunshot. His friend actually works at King Soopers. His name is Mason. And Mason was in the break room when that first gunshot went off. And he says the first thing that he thought was to get people into closets, get people into hiding spaces. He says he texted family and friends, I love you, because he wasn't sure he was going to make it out of this King Soopers alive. And we have been seeing video on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, of people in the parking lot while this was all unfolding, people inside the store. And it is very graphic video. We're not sharing that because that is not, we don't have rights to that kind of video, but hopefully police can shed some light in the next half hour as to who this individual was targeting, or individuals, as we learn more information, who these people, the victims that were shot and killed inside the store. Still learning to gather, or still working to gather some more information. All the vehicles out here at this King Soopers will remain at the scene. And as we learn more information, we have been seeing people come out here trying to figure out when they can get to their vehicle. That time right now is unknown, but we'll continue to bring you all the details as they come available to us. Shannon and Nan.
Thank you, Addie.
Right.
And tragically, this is already making national news. I just received a push alert from the Wall Street Journal. I'm seeing all the networks sharing information. So again, Colorado making national news with another mass tragedy, a mass shooting where we know that 6 lives have been claimed.
And also, not that it needs saying, but we're not showing that video just because we don't have the rights to that. We don't want to magnify this and glorify this in any way. We're not here to do that. We're gonna try to be sober and responsible with our coverage and just give you what you need to know.
Factual information, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Jason Grenauer now, and he's been able to put a timeline together of how this afternoon unfolded. Jason.
Yes, good evening to you. And we've now been on air for multiple hours. So we do want to kind of refresh and bring you back to when this all started. 2:49 p.m. in the afternoon, this Monday afternoon here in Colorado, and up in Boulder, people were at the grocery store. But at 2:49 is when we got the first tweet, that from Boulder police, saying, alert, active shooter at the King Soopers on Table Mesa, avoid the area. Shortly after that, around 3 o'clock, that's when we learned that Boulder police were called to this active shooter report in the parking lot of that King Soopers. When they arrived, they were fired upon and there were injuries. That coming from state law enforcement. The extent of the injuries were not known at that time. Shortly after 3:15, we saw police officers actually on the roof of that King Soopers that were raised there from a fire truck. Then we saw footage given to us by ABC News, police announcing at the front of that King Soopers, the entire building is surrounded, you need to surrender. At 3:30, that's just 40 minutes after that initial tweet went out, we saw a man be taken out of that King Soopers, shirtless, No socks, no shoes. He was bleeding down one of his legs. This is the video that we saw, this dramatic video at 3:30. In handcuffs, that individual walking under his own power was taken into custody. We do not know at this point if that person is a suspect. We do know that they were in handcuffs. They were placed in the back of an ambulance. They were taken to a local hospital. Boulder police continued throughout this afternoon to call this an active scene. We saw crews eventually then walking out of that King Soopers. Some crews then still there with their guns trained on the front doors. Eventually, we did see people running away from the building as police had their guns drawn. It appeared that some of the people still inside that store running out under the cover of police. Now, I was able to call and speak to several local businesses in that shopping plaza that said that they simply just locked their doors. They went into lockdown. They hid in the back. Several of the shoppers inside that King Soopers running out, running into nearby businesses, and locking themselves inside. So at 5:38 p.m., that's when our Tony Kovaleski did confirm with multiple law enforcement sources at least 6 people had been killed in this shooting. You heard our anchor say not too long ago, our reporting colleagues at ABC News saying that the shooter used a long gun in this situation. Now, we also want to get you caught up with a few other things that have come into our newsroom just within the last few minutes or so. A statement from King Soopers saying that we are horrified and deeply saddened by the senseless violence that occurred at our King Soopers store on Table Mesa Drive in Boulder. The CU men's basketball team, who's actually playing right now in the NCAA tournament, tweeting out, "We are shocked and saddened, and our hearts go out to those impacted." That's the timeline. That's the latest that we're getting as we now count down about 15 minutes until that news conference. You're looking live at a live picture rather, of where that news conference will take place, or we expect to learn more. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Jason Grenauer, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. This day just gets sadder and sadder as we learn more information. So we're saying 6:30, but they keep pushing back this information. And usually how that happens, they want to make sure that they have a full idea of just what happens. And when that deadline will come that they set for themselves and they don't feel like they have all the information, then they push it back. So that's what's going on. They're not teasing. They're not toying with this. They just usually, my experience with police in situations like this, they want to have full and accurate information. And if they feel, well, we can have that, 30 minutes later, 15 minutes later, that's what they're doing here. Okay, Adi Guajardo has spoken with several people this afternoon and evening who were inside the building as the terror was unfolding. And Adi joins us one more time with, I believe, someone else who was a witness to this. Adi?
Well, Shannon, Ann, we've covered these mass shootings in the past, and every single story counts. Right now, we have James Graham. And James, from where we're standing, we could see a couple of the windows completely gone at the King Soopers. Can you tell us where you were at when this all unfolded?
So I was just checking out at the self checkout on I think the south side of the store, and all of a sudden I started hearing shots, and glass broke above my head. So I turned to run, and there was a lady laying down next to me. I ran the back side of the store, the south side of the store, and a guy called me out back to go out the north dock or the alley dock out there. And so I went out there and I just ran. I came across a bush and hid behind the bush. I was just like, and I could still hear the shots being fired.
How many times do you come to this King Soopers? Is this your home King Soopers?
Well, I work over here at NOAA. So I came here because I couldn't take a left off of Broadway. We're having construction done in the front of our building. So I decided to just come over here. But I've been here a few times to get lunch at the King Soopers. So yeah.
How many shots did you hear ring out inside?
I probably heard 30 shots. It was just pop, 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 pop.
Right now, we're still waiting to hear from police how many suspects were in there, whether it's one individual or more than one. What was your
I heard two different types of fire. I heard a deeper muzzle fire, and then I heard like a handgun fire. So there was more than one shooter there because it was rapidly firing.
Did you have a sense of what direction the shooter was coming in through?
No, like I said, that glass broke right above my head. So my instinct was to run behind the produce and everything, any kind of stand that was up that I could get behind. That was my only instinct, but it was coming from the front of the store.
Can you take us to that moment What was it like? Were people screaming? Were they hiding? What was running through your mind?
Panic. I was scared. I mean, it was the most terrifying event I've ever been through. I mean, I've been through an active shooter drill, but you know, you prepare yourself for that. I mean, this is real life, and this is something you never think you'd be involved with. But I mean, it was just too real and too scary.
You know, time and time again, we've seen these shootings unfold, these mass shootings throughout the U.S., and we have had active shooter training. Did that feel like it prepared you for what you encountered today?
No. I mean, this happened so fast, and it was so loud that no. I mean, the noise alone prepared me for it, because it was like, okay, those are gunshots fired, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm still in shock over it. It's just so surreal.
When you were running, what was running in your head? I mean, did you have a sense of direction where to go?
At first, I thought I got shot because I might have pulled a muscle running. I'm not that great of shape, but going around the produce. But yeah, I was like, you know, I got out to the clear. I'm fine. But yeah, I mean, it felt like I was being shot at.
How close do you think those gunshots were to where you
Well, I
were?
could smell the gunpowder, so they were pretty close. They were pretty close to me.
You know, our sources have confirmed at least 6 people dead inside this King Soopers. Standing out here, what does that make you feel?
Angry, sad. Why somebody would do this, I don't know. It just, you know, I don't know, especially in this kind of neighborhood. I mean, this is kind of a nice neighborhood where this happens. It's unbelievable.
I'm looking at your eyes right now. You're tearing up. What are you feeling? I feel like you're feeling more than just that trauma after I told you what our sources have confirmed.
I saw a lady laying down when I was running. I was not sure if she was shot, if she was laying down, or what. After I left the store, maybe I thought maybe I should have grabbed her. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
For whoever did this, whoever's responsible for these 6 deaths that we know at this point, it could be more. What words do you have for those individuals or that individual?
I hope they get what's coming to them.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and catch your breath, and we're here for you. Thank you so much.
Addie,
And we'll continue to gather details and talk to everyone, because every story matters. And Shannon and Ann, I'm going to send it back to you two.
Yeah, too real and too scary, his words. And that is so true. What a tragedy. And our hearts go out to all those people who have to deal with such a tragedy in a very personal, direct way. Addie, thank you for that. It just, it's just too much to take some days, right? So thank you for that. We'll check back with Addie here in just a bit. And again, we're waiting on a news conference at 6:30. We promise to bring that to you as soon as it happens. We do have several crews out all over Boulder trying to gather information and talk to folks as they try to deal with this tragedy. We have Gary Brode out right now who is joining us. And Gary, what are you hearing out there right now?
Well, you know, it's not so much hearing, and it's more of what I'm seeing. And you just see people just kind of trickling around, just kind of seeing what's going on, because no, they might not be the families of the victims, but they live here. I mean, this is a very residential area. I actually just got done talking to a woman who's lived here since the mid 80s. And this one was a little chilling for me, because she told me she went into the parking lot. She was about to get out of the car. She then decided that she wanted ice cream. So she went and got Sweet Cow. And she said about 5 minutes later is when she heard the sirens. So had she not gotten the craving for ice cream, she would have been in that King Soopers at the time of the shooting. And you know, you could see in her face, she was telling me, I just can't compute it right now. I just can't really process what's going on. And you know, as I'm looking around right now, I don't know if you could see it over here, but a giant window in the middle of the King Soopers is blown out. I have no idea from what. You know, I certainly was not here when everything happened. But you know, when you see something like that, there's a lot of damage. even above that, I saw investigators a few minutes ago up on the roof, kind of checking out everything, getting a lay of the land, looking at the landscape, trying to figure out, everything that was going on. And as we speak even more, you just looking to our right over here, as I mentioned, people are just kind of out looking, seeing what's going on. This is not something that happens often anywhere. But that woman I talked to said, really in this neighborhood, the biggest thing that we've dealt with was a flood. So this is really uncharted territory for a lot of folks in this neighborhood. And, I do want to add one more thing here. I coming up on about 10 years of journalism, and I've covered multiple mass shootings in Florida. When I was in Boston, I covered a city in New England that was gas lines were causing it to explode. And I've never in my life seen the police presence that I'm seeing right here. It's kind of jarring just to see. You kind of get an idea of how serious this is. I mean, look, anytime you're talking about 6 dead, of course, it's extremely serious, but this is an experience that really no one should have to go through. And yet several families already have to, and really now an entire community is having to deal with this. And you could just already tell that the ripple effects have begun.
Absolutely. Well, and as you said, I mean, that woman knows that she was oh so close. And I think, we all go grocery shopping, right?
Yep.
So I think that is just one of
Yeah,
those
that's exactly
situations where any one of us, where you can absolutely relate. And I think, since so many of us now have covered mass shootings, there is just a sense of sadness that falls after a while. I mean, at first it's just shock and, disbelief, whatever words you want to choose. And then it's just this deep sadness,
of course.
Right? Is that what
And
you've
it's
experienced?
sadness, and sadness and anger. I mean, I think, as we just heard from the gentleman that Addie just spoke to, anger. I mean, how could you not be angry that someone would just unnecessarily do this? I mean, it's hard not to be angry. It's hard not to be sad. It's hard not to be in total shock. And going back to that woman, I mean, when you say this out loud, and she said, ice cream may have saved my life. I mean, really, if you have to think about that, try to let that process for a second. Because she decided to go get ice cream instead of going grocery shopping, that may have saved her life today.
Well, our hearts go out to everyone, really. I mean, I know it hits home deeply for people in Boulder, but I think it hits home for Coloradans and just people across the country who have experienced this one too many times. Gary Brode, thank you for that update. I appreciate it. All right, we are going to continue our coverage now and move on to Jason Grenauer. And Jason, you've been hearing from some of our federal officials about this tragedy in Colorado today.
Yeah, and we've just learned, we knew that the FBI was involved in this investigation, and most recently we just learned from the press secretary, Jen Psaki, that the president has now been briefed on the situation and the shooting in Boulder. We've also gotten multiple actually, statements from local politicians, including several from the city of Boulder, including the mayor pro tem there, who says, I am deeply sorry to hear what is going on in our community. This is stretching us emotionally, not wanting to speculate or offer any information beyond what the police department is offering, but keeping the community in our prayers. We will get through this together. Then Rachel Friend, the Boulder City Council member, saying, I am heartsick and devastated for our community. My thoughts and heart are with the victims and their families right now. Their suffering is unimaginable, and my focus will be on doing whatever I can to help ease their sorrow. Again, we knew the FBI was involved in this investigation, as it usually is when there's any kind of mass shooting, especially with now the reports coming in that up to 6 people may have been killed here in this shooting. But now learning from the press secretary that the President Joe Biden, has been briefed on this shooting in Colorado and will be kept up to date by his team as there are any additional developments. Ann?
All right, another national tragedy right here at home. Jason Grenauer, thank you for that update. A couple of quick things. We know we had mentioned the 17th and Grove location to you earlier, where we literally saw first responders leaving the scene of that King Soopers and running to get over to a 17th and Grove location. So we now know that that FBI SWAT teams, I should say SWAT teams, have left that location. We saw them out there, standing out there with long guns drawn, but we know that that scene seems to have been somewhat clear to this point. So that is the latest on that situation. And again, we are waiting on a news conference. 6:30 now is the latest that we are hearing that will happen. But again, you're looking at the live picture right now. This is outside the Whole Foods grocery store there in Boulder. And this is the location where they will be holding that news conference. All the media crews are standing out there patiently waiting for Police Commander Kerry Yamaguchi and DA Michael Doherty and someone from King Soopers who will be out there to hold that news conference. We know they are filtering through so much information right now and trying to assess what happened on this day. We also, again, from our investigator, Tony Kovaleski, we've learned that 6 people lost their lives out there. So there is so much to put their arms around within this investigation today. And as you watch all of these pictures, all of these images from this afternoon that started just about 2:49 this afternoon, we saw such an outpouring of presence from police departments, from really along the front range, SWAT teams, sheriff's departments, fire departments, some 15 agencies that came out to assist the Boulder Police Department when they first got those calls of an active shooter at that King Soopers at Table Mesa and Broadway. And from the witness accounts, police were there pretty rapidly. But what we also learned from those firsthand accounts is that that people saw a shooter. People heard gunshots. And that last gentleman that we heard Addie speaking with, he said he heard at least 30 gunshots. So, and from a couple of different types of weapons. So those are the details that we've heard from those who were inside the store at the time. And some of those folks have been able to leave. But we know there's so much more going on inside that store right now as we come up now at just about, there we go. It's now 6:30 here in Colorado Mountain Time, and we are waiting on this news conference to get some very specific details from the Boulder Police Department as they sift through all of the information. And again, there is the so to speak podium that they will be using to hold this news conference. So that's what we know to this point. And we have several crews out there right now that we can talk to. And let's go back to Jason Grenauer, who can bring us more up to date on what you're seeing on social media. Jason?
Yeah, Ann, and I was able to make a few phone calls around, obviously, much concern in the area because this King Super store isn't on an island. It's not by itself. It's in the middle of a shopping plaza. There are multiple local businesses right next door that not only heard the shots, but then were witness to what happened next, including all of that police presence involved. I spoke to several stores who, as of just about 2 hours ago, were still under lockdown, though everyone inside was safe, folks, including those at the local mountaineering store and the nail salon right across the parking lot, really, from that King Soopers. Many of those shots from Air Tracker 7 that we saw early on, a lot of the law enforcement presence was gearing up literally in front of these businesses. I spoke to one pharmacy in that nearby plaza. They said that as those shots rang out and people ran out of the store, several ran into that nearby building to try to take some shelter there. And when they did, they simply went into lockdown. And when I spoke with the manager, there were still people inside, locked inside that building, waiting for an all clear from law enforcement officials as this investigation was still unfolding. It was still unclear how many, if there was one gunman, if there were multiple involved. And the best news out of all of this, no one inside those nearby businesses were injured. We still don't know the number of people that could have been injured in totality in this mass shooting at and outside this King Soopers. We've heard from several witnesses involved that have said that there were shots fired inside. We know that the original reason the Boulder police was called here was because there were shots fired outside in the parking lot. And then as officers responded to that shooting, then shots were fired at officers themselves. Then this whole thing went into motion that we are still waiting on that news conference, trying to learn more as we see some of those live pictures of law enforcement now leaving the scene. We've updated that 17th and Grove incident throughout the afternoon, where Boulder police had put out that reverse 911 call to people, asking them to stay in their homes, reporting from our Tony Kovaleski and our CB Cotton there on the ground, that now they don't believe that that may have been an actual second shooter involved, but you can still see there is a lot of police presence still going on in Boulder, still going on most likely through this evening into tomorrow. This investigation is going to take some time. But as we continue to just kind of pause and look through this video and just kind of take into account the gravity of today, knowing that at least 6 people were killed when they went out to just simply go grocery shopping on a sunny Monday afternoon in Boulder, it's really just another tough scene to swallow here in Colorado that several of us have been a part of. I know Ann Trujillo has been through all of it here as a Colorado native. Just another difficult sight, and probably much more difficult information, and coming as we've been awaiting that press conference, wanting to learn more details about what happened. But I know a lot of us kind of have that feeling in our gut that we know we're going to probably get some more bad news as we learn more and more information here comes out.
Well, and it becomes absolutely so much more troubling when you see the faces and you learn the names and you learn that they had family members and you learn that they were innocently shopping or working. You know, how, where, why would you ever expect a tragedy like this at a local grocery store? So it really becomes I mean, it really is a very sad day in Colorado. And Jason, we'll check back with you here shortly. But even just listening to some of those folks who, you know, too real and too scary. Some of the quotes that we heard people say, that they heard the gunshots, saw people laying on the ground, saying it was a truly horrifying experience. And those are the kinds of things that just stick with you for the rest of your life. You do not forget where you were. You do not forget what the situation was. You know, had you been at the grocery store that day, or you have a friend who lives in Boulder, are they okay? This is when, you know, we have people who step up and help one another. Those first responders, the fact that they were there, we heard from witnesses say that they were there quickly and they went in and confronted someone with a gun, and that shots were exchanged. You know, there are so many hero stories that will also come out of this. But again, when we also learned that there were 6 lives lost, that's also the tragic part, when you know that they were Coloradans who were simply trying to go about their daily business. Let's get back to Gary Brode, who's also in Boulder this afternoon and has been talking with some folks about just what a sad day this is, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mentioned earlier, people are coming out. I mean, over on the other side, we got a little closer up here, but beyond the police here, you could see more people outside, kind of just checking out, seeing what's going on. You know, as I get a little closer to this parking lot here, you can see SWAT team over here on the side, and really just a heavy police presence, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. But kind of what sticks out to me is the fact that there's still a lot of cars in this parking lot, and I know that they're just cars, but at the same time, you know, there's people who drove those cars at some point today to get just to go grocery shopping, you know, and then things just took a complete turn. And it really kind of makes it just that much more real to see that there's just a lot of people that are, you know, either unaccounted for or just had to quickly just get up and leave. And so, you know, it's just kind of one of those situations right now where, yeah, we're just kind of waiting to figure out everything that happened, but it just looks more real. And again, I go back to the blown out windows over here. I mean, when you see that right in front of the King Soopers, I mean, it just it's a scary situation that we're looking at, and it's just harder and harder to kind of comprehend the more we walk around. We've basically done an entire loop around the King Soopers here just to kind of figure out what's going on, to talk to people, and the more we see and the more we talk to, it's a harder pill to swallow. So, you know, we're kind of just taking this minute by minute at this point, Ann.
Well, and Gary, we're hearing now that news conference will happen any minute. I know we've been saying this for a while now, but it will happen any minute, and we promise that we will bring that to you just as the very second we have wind that it's going to happen. So you can see the setup there, and just back to one other point that Jason had made earlier. President Biden has been briefed on the shooting here in Colorado, and he will be kept up to date by his team as there are additional developments. So we know that much as well. But again, you mentioned the cars out there in that parking lot, Gary. I mean, it's a crime scene, not just the store, but also the parking lot. And you're right.
Well,
they're there are folks who, who drove there today to do their shopping. Their cars are still there. And
Yeah.
even those who were able to get out, they can't get back in to get their vehicles. I mean, they're already traumatized. And then this added frustration of they just can't get to their belongings. And
I mean,
tough.
absolutely. If you really think about it, if I go into a grocery store at 2 o'clock to go get some bread and some milk, and then this happens at 2:30, I mean, that's you just don't think about these things until it actually happens, because honestly, we shouldn't have to think about things like this. But the truth is, again, when you see what the reality is right now, it's kind of hard to swallow at this point.
Particularly when you see that police presence. I mean, as we look at that live picture and even the pictures from earlier this afternoon, I've heard from multiple people. Well, you said it yourself, Gary. You've never seen such a massive police presence. But it's also very telling about
I said this,
the techniques that officers are using now
as soon
to
as
be able to confront these.
Go
ahead.
And even I could tell you, we were on a story, we were on assignment just a few hours before this happened, or actually, now that I think about it, probably as it was happening. I'm heading south down from Thornton, and I see maybe 20, 25 officers going north, going right by the opposite way. And it just shows you the presence of not just here in Boulder, but how many different law enforcement agencies knew that this was something that they had to jump in right away. And again, to see that, I mean, we're seeing different police departments, we're seeing different sheriff's departments. I believe I saw FBI. I mean, we are talking about, again, I've been working in the journalism field for nearly 10 years now. I have never seen even half of the amount of law enforcement that I'm seeing today. And it's kind of puts me in awe, because that just shows you the gravity of what's going on here today.
And I think it also speaks to the brotherhood and sisterhood of that job.
Yeah.
And this is a job, and it's a heartbreaking job, and they have to do it. And they also have each other's backs. And this is when, this is when they need to stand up and be there for one another. And they have learned that technique has changed really, really since Columbine, where they learned from that situation that they had to go in right away, but they also learned that they needed to be able to communicate with all of the other metro area police and fire and emergency departments, so that they were all on the same page about what was happening in these active shooter situations, so that everyone was fully briefed and there were no communication issues. So much has changed, and they have learned on how to respond to these situations. It doesn't make it any easier on any of these folks who have to deal with this again, more than a couple of times in their lifetime, that no one should ever have to deal with, Gary.
Well, and that's just exactly it. I mean, I think you're spot on right there. I mean, yes, I shouldn't say it like this, but the truth is they've had practice. I mean, this has happened way too often. And we say this all the time when it happens like this, but that is why these law enforcement agencies know how important it is to be out here right now, because when you're talking about an active shooter like we were talking about just a couple of hours ago, things probably could have been even that much worse. I mean, if you don't have that heavy police presence and the training that we've now covered numerous stories on over the last few years, really, about how important this active shooter training has become, and to see, like you said, the brotherhood to really come together. And honestly, as I'm talking right now, police, the city of Arvada literally just pulled up here in Boulder. I mean, that's just that prime example right there. That's not exactly a right down the road situation here. So yeah, I mean, again, this is just a case where it's happening too often, and now we know that, hey, we need as much help as possible in a situation like today.
Well, and sadly, it's become a part of our lives and our kids' lives. The fact that they do drills at school, in workplaces, wherever people gather.
Yeah.
The fact that those drills now are just part of our lives, it really is a sad reality.
And of course, you bring up Columbine. I mean, that you said your kids and just we all grew up like that. And honestly, I think I was in maybe middle school, elementary school, high school. I can't really remember, but that's when Columbine happened. And really, it's that constant. I don't want to say fear, because I don't live in fear, but at the same time, you have to always be aware that now it can happen. And it's terrible to have to say that out loud. You know, it really is. But that's just kind of, like you said, the reality we live in now.
You're right. And I think you did raise a good point. We don't want to live in fear. And I think that is one of the great takeaways that a society can gain from an event like this, where we do not want to live in fear. We do have to be aware. And that is a very valid point. One quick note I'm seeing now from Boulder Police, that shelter in place at 17th and Grove, that has now been lifted. The shelter in place notice at 17th and Grove, that has now been lifted. And again, we are waiting on this news conference that will start any second now. I promise you it will be on all of our platforms. So don't get discouraged. It is going to happen as we wait to hear from Police Commander Kerry Yamaguchi and the Boulder DA Mike Doherty, and also a spokesperson from King Soopers, as we look at the area out in front of that Whole Foods where the microphones have been set up. Gary, talk a little bit more about some of the folks that you've been talking with this afternoon about. I mean, how they. First of all, I don't even know how you can have a conversation after dealing with a situation like that. You know,
it's yeah. Oh, and that's exactly right. Because the truth is, you try to have the conversation, but I mean, this just happened a couple of hours ago. I mean, this is still so fresh, and it's really hard to just kind of compute and process everything that just happened. I mean, even if, let's just say, you lived right across the street from this. I mean, to know that a shooter was right across the street in what is normally a very nice neighborhood, in a very quiet neighborhood. And I know that sounds extremely cliche, but this doesn't happen, and it shouldn't happen. And the fact is that there are a lot of neighbors around here who are still trying to process this. And, and I do want to, mention, I think as a journalist, yeah, of course, we have a thirst for knowledge and to want to know what happened. But, just as a human being, I want to know as much about what happened as just a person, as just a citizen, as just, someone who loves this community and the state. I want to know what happened and why. And I think we all do. And so I think, we're all waiting on bated breath for any information we can give. But at this point, of course, from our perspective, we can only really just react. But yeah, I mean, certainly, how could you not want to know everything that's going on right now? Because like you said, this is just not supposed to happen.
Well, and when we know that there are 6 lives lost, and we will learn their identities, I suspect, here fairly soon, and we will learn their personal stories, that they lived here, they were our neighbors, they were our, teammates, they were, whatever their personal story is, that hits home. That hits home for Colorado. And the fact that we've done this way too many times, that just hits our state really hard. So again, we are waiting on that news conference. I promise we'll bring it all to you. And, we just are waiting, and we know that law enforcement, we've talked about this brotherhood, sisterhood. We know they are standing by one another as we wait and hope for the best. But sadly, this is not the outcome that anyone was hoping for this afternoon at just after 2:30, when we first were hearing reports of shots fired at a King Soopers store on what should have been a very quiet, easy afternoon at the grocery store, and one of those places that you should be easily able to shop and get your business done, where you know your neighbors, you go there on a regular basis. And I think it's really troubling for not just Boulder, but really the state of Colorado and really the nation, as so many people stop and wait and watch and wonder those same questions that you just raised, Gary, the why and who would do such a thing.
And yeah, and you said the nation. I mean, I 2 hours ago on my way here, my brothers in Ohio told me about what was going on, and I had to tell them that I was on my way to come here. But yes, I mean, they're in Ohio, and they're already finding out about this, because of social media and things like that. Of course, things circulate a lot faster, but this shows, this has a long-lasting effect. I mean, when you're talking about at least 6 people, that is awful, and that is always going to resonate with anyone, because something like this, as I keep saying over and over, should not happen. And as I talked to earlier, when I spoke to one of the King Soopers employees who was in there at the time, thankfully he got out, but he was just saying how I keep reliving it over and over. And I think Shannon said earlier that he at one point was involved in a similar situation, and it's hard to ever, I can't imagine. But from what I was told from that King Soopers employees is, he doesn't believe that he'll ever really be able to get that image out, or the sound of the gunshots. So, you know, it's one of those things that's just going to have a long impact on a lot of people.
It just sticks with you forever. I mean, people don't forget.
Yeah.
They just don't forget. And to your point earlier,
Exactly.
this has made national news. All the networks are covering this. I mentioned earlier, I got a push alert from the Wall Street Journal. I mean, people are watching. The world is watching now, and this is not how Colorado wants to make news. You know, we are known for our beautiful mountains, our beautiful scenery, our great air, our blue skies, and wonderful people. And this is not how Colorado wants to be remembered on a day like today. I want to point out that the governor did send out a message earlier where he said, "My heart is breaking as we watch this unspeakable event unfold in our Boulder community." And he said, "We're making every public safety resource available to assist the Boulder County Sheriff's Department as they work to secure the store." And he says, "I'm incredibly grateful to the brave men and women who have responded to the scene to help the victims of this senseless tragedy." And he said earlier, this is still very much an active situation, and we continue to monitor and ask for people's patience as law enforcement works tirelessly to secure the area. And again, looking at this live picture right now, you can see that it is still very much an active situation where all of those police vehicles are still out in front of that store here, 4 hours later now that this has been going on. But again, the governor goes on to say right now the biggest priority is to let law enforcement and the city of Boulder do their work to ensure the safety of those involved. So again, so many lives affected by this event today, those inside the store, those working the store, those customers, family members, all the law enforcement officers who were there on scene and have been throughout the day. We know that at least 15 different agencies responded to this today. And I want to go back a little bit earlier where, you know, we were talking about the who could have done this, and we don't know those answers. What we can tell you is that when Air Tracker 7 was up above the scene earlier this afternoon, we did see police officers take someone away in handcuffs. And this was someone they took out of the store. He was in police custody. He was shirtless. He was shoeless, no socks, and had some blood on the right side of his leg. But police were walking him out with his hands handcuffed to his back and put him into an ambulance and took him away to the hospital. So that's as much as we know about anything related to the who or what. That much we were able to show you, but there are so many videos, so many rumors circulating right now. What we can tell you is that we know that at least 6 people have lost their lives in this shooting in Boulder, Colorado today. And then there on the right side of your screen, you can see people are starting to gather now as we wait on this news conference. We really think that this is just moments away now. We've been promising you this easily for about the last hour or so, but it looks like that people are assembling. We were expecting Police Commander Kerry Yamaguchi to be there, also the Boulder DA to be there, as well as someone from King Super. So let's go ahead and listen in now.
Commander Kerry Yamaguchi with the Boulder Police Department is going to speak first. It's Commander, and it's KERRYYAMAGUCHI. And then we're going to have District Attorney Michael Dougherty, MICHAEL DOUGHERTY. And then we're going to have Kelly McGannon from King Super speak. It's KELLYMCGANNON. After they speak, we will take a few questions, but please understand we're in the very early stages of a very large investigation that is going to take some time. So we will not be able to answer a lot of your questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commander Kerry Yamaguchi from the Boulder Police Department.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? As Dion shared, we had a very tragic incident today here at the King Supers. There was loss of life. We have multiple people who were killed in this incident. And I am sorry to have to report that one of them was a Boulder police officer. During this trying time, I would ask the media and the public to honor the privacy of the officer's family and his co-workers here at the police department. I will also share that we got tremendous support from our fellow law enforcement agencies, both in Boulder County, which some of them you see behind me, the FBI, ATF, and other Denver metro agencies. Without that quick response, we don't know if there would have been more loss of life. I can share with the public today, or this evening, that there is no ongoing public threat, that we do have a person of interest in custody. That person was injured during the incident and is being treated for the injuries.
Good evening. My name is Michael Doherty. I'm the District Attorney for Boulder County. This is a tragedy and a nightmare for Boulder County. And in response, we have cooperation and assistance from local, state, and federal authorities. This will very much be a coordinated effort, and we will stand united in support of the victims and their families to ensure that justice is done. It's a very early stage in the investigation, as you've heard, and we have a lot of work to do, but we'll be giving out more information as that becomes available and as we nail down the facts here. As Commander Yamaguchi said, there is an individual in custody currently with multiple victims, and we'll be doing everything we can to fight for them and their families to make sure that we reach the right and just outcome. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kelly McGannon, spokesperson for King Soopers. Our hearts are broken over this senseless act of violence. The entire King Soopers family offers our thoughts, prayers, and support to our associates, our customers, and first responders who so bravely responded to these acts of violence. We are working in full cooperation with local law enforcement and will be deferring all questions to them for the integrity of the investigation. Thank you.
Take a few questions. Amanda, can you tell us what happened?
So, as has already been mentioned, we're very early in the investigation. As Dion shared, that we responded here, officers were here within minutes of the initial 911 calls and entered the building very quickly.
Do you know any possible motive for this?
Very early in the investigation, we don't have any details that I can share at this point. There will be additional information released as it's gathered and it's appropriate to release, but that will come from the Boulder Police Department.
How many other people have deaths, sir? You confirm the number of deaths. When did the call happen? Before 3 o'clock?
Just before 3 o'clock today.
Can you tell us how many people have died?
We're very early in the investigation. We are still processing the scene.
Do you know if the shooter said anything as the shooter entered the building?
That will be part of the investigation.
What happened on 17th Street?
That was unrelated, we believe, to this incident.
Will there be?
We're still investigating.
Are there injuries in addition to those who were killed? Were there injuries in addition to those who were killed?
So at this point, the only injured party we are aware of significant injury was the suspect. We know of no other serious injuries at this point.
Do you have any identifying information about the suspect?
No.
Do you know if there was any relationship between the gunman and the people that were shot?
That will be part of the investigation.
When you say multiple fatalities, can you tell us how many?
No, we don't know. They're still processing the scene.
Are there more than 5, sir?
Don't know.
How many in the hospital? Multiple people?
Don't know how many are at the hospital currently. I know for sure there is one.
Commander, was there video of the video cameras that might have taken what happened?
That's all going to be part of the investigation.
Does this man have any connection at all to King Soopers or any of the workers?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know. That's part of the investigation.
Was your first call of a man and an active shooter in the parking lot, then it moved inside?
So I haven't had a chance to review any of those calls, and so I can't tell you in what order things were reported to us.
Was this man wearing military gear?
I'm sorry, I
style
got two
gear?
questions.
Military style, was he wearing military style gear during that?
Don't know. That'll be part of the investigation.
What about the weapon?
Don't have information on that. As I said, the crime scene folks have just very recently entered the crime scene to start processing it. Since I would be speculating of who you're talking about, I can't confirm that. I don't know.
Commander, not to be critical, but it's been more than 3 hours since you got the call. You can't tell us how many people were dead?
I don't have that information right now.
Does anybody?
That'll be part of the investigation.
Is the suspect an older community?
So if I could just interject for one moment, there's a lot of investigation already underway. A lot of things are being realized as the crime scene's being processed, including the number of victims, which is known to police investigators. But I want to stress that victims' family members are still being notified. So we're being really sensitive to the victims' families. So I appreciate Commander Yamaguchi not giving out more information at this point. But even for the facts of which we're certain, those conversations are going to happen with the families first. Those conversations are now taking place.
If we know there are some,
We're going to be talking to the families first and then giving out more information. Okay. Well, Boulder Police Department is going to be giving out that information. I recognize the need to get the information out as soon as possible. I do. But I also recognize that we have one suspect in custody. We're going to ensure that justice is done. And to do that, we're going to make sure we have the facts certain and understood before we start sharing them with the media and the public. That's going to happen. That's going to happen in the next couple hours.
Can you describe the suspect? With you? You don't have to share the motive, but is he presented why he did what he did?
I do not have any information as to the motive at this point. It's really early in the investigation, but I cannot do that at this point, but I can promise you the Boulder Police Department is going to be releasing more information in the next few hours.
How are families who might have been impacted by this maybe looking for loved ones being notified that their family members are okay? Can you tell us that?
So the CU Police Department is helping with family members that may have questions about loved ones, and Chief Joe Kirst will be able to provide more information for family members to contact the CU Police Department for information. So there is a suspect in custody. There's no scheduled court appearances just yet.
Have there been any charges that have been filed? Will any charges be filed?
Well, the suspect is being treated medically at the hospital right now. I can promise you that we're going to ensure the right thing happens with this case.
Is this man from the Boulder area?
That's all I have at this point, but I appreciate you being here, and we'll be giving out more information. The Boulder Police Department will be in charge of giving out more information. We're going to ask Chief Joe Kirst, if she will, just to let family members know where they could go for or call in for notifications on possible victims. Thank you for that question. If there are witnesses out there who have information, and there were many witnesses to this who are cooperating with the investigation already, but if there are additional witnesses, they should contact the Boulder Police Department. But let me turn it over to Chief Joe Kirst.
So if there was witnesses that saw this event, they can contact 303-441-3333, and that's the main number to the Boulder Police Department. Yep, no problem. 303-441-3333, and that's the main number to the Boulder Police Department. If there's family or loved ones that have questions as well, they can contact that main number, and they'll be sent an address in regards to additional information there. Thank you very much.
About the courage of your officer, we're told he or she went back in, saved lives by what they did.
And that's all the questions we can take right now. I know we wanted more information, but we don't have any more information we can share at this time. We will continue to post all information that we can on our Twitter, and we will announce the next press conference as soon as we know with more information.
Help us understand how you don't know.
We are hoping to have more information to release later this evening, yes.
Will there be a procession for the fallen officer? How do you not know?
I will find out and we will let you know. I'll do that. This area, we will continue to ask everybody to avoid the area. This is going to be blocked off for quite some time. So please continue to tell individuals to avoid this area.
Okay, clearly not the answers that we were hoping to find out this afternoon. Boulder officials basically saying they can't tell us the number of fatalities, the number of people who died in that King Superstore. Our sources have told us 6 people, including one Boulder police officer, and they referred to that Boulder police officer as a male. So we know that one of them was a Boulder police officer. And also Boulder officials saying that they are not sharing information about those who died because they are still notifying families and going through that process. So not a whole lot of information there, but our Tony Kovaleski was there and listening in. And Tony, this was a frustrating news conference because we really didn't get any clear information about what happened this afternoon.
That is accurate, and we didn't find out what happened. We don't know about a motive. They did clarify a couple things. Remember, early on, we thought there might have been a second suspect at the location on 17th Street here in Boulder, and they did confirm that there was no connection. It's only one suspect. He is in the hospital right now recovering from his injuries. He will be charged, but they did not tell us what happened. No real details, no motive at this point. We asked them to confirm the number of people that were dead. They have elected not to. And as you pointed out, we did know early this afternoon that one of the dead was a Boulder police officer, but out of respect to the family, we decided to withhold that information until it was confirmed. And as you heard in that news conference, one officer was shot. We're told from sources that that officer may have gone back into King Soopers in a heroic move, may have saved lives, a move that ultimately cost his or her life. So a lot happening here, but not a whole lot answered, as you said, Ann, not knowing the motive, no details of how it unfolded. Remember, it was about 3:10 when I got a text early in the afternoon from a source that said it was really, really bad. They did confirm multiple fatalities. They did confirm that one is a Boulder police officer, but beyond that, a lot more questions that they're just waiting on at this point. And Shannon?
And Tony, one other important note that came out of that news conference, that there is no ongoing public threat. And I'm sure that is a relief to people in Boulder today to at least hear that one tidbit of information.
Yeah, that is a key point, that the only individual they believe was responsible for the shootings they have in custody. We heard earlier in the afternoon that they were out to a location in another spot in Boulder. We've been told that may be the shooter's home. But again, not a second suspect. They're not looking for anybody else, and everything is resolved at this point. But you heard, if you listen to the entire news conference, a lot of frustration from people here because we're more than 3 hours since they got that first call, and not disclosing some of the details at this point is a little unusual, a little confusing. But again, the Boulder Police Department and the Boulder DA deciding to sit very tight on information. Ann?
Yes, but we will be here throughout the evening. Tony, thank you for that. Staying on top of details. You heard the Boulder PD officials say that they will be releasing more information tonight. We have multiple crews there. Shannon Ogden is on his way to Boulder right now. So we will have complete coverage for you here on air and, of course, on all of our streaming outlets as well, right here for you on Denver 7. Thank you so much for sticking with us this afternoon on this very tragic day in Boulder, Colorado.
Sorry, I was on mute once again. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking with us. I've been on here for almost 3 hours now, and I hate to cut it short because I know a lot of you guys got questions, but I have to run. I have to go get some dinner and do some other things. But terrible tragedy coming out of Boulder, Colorado. Absolutely horrific. The news conference that they just, you guys all heard it. It wasn't very good. It wasn't very informative, but hopefully later tonight we'll have some more answers, and we'll be talking about it later this week. So I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and we'll continue to talk about this case. To all my fellow Coloradians, my heart goes out to you, especially those that, oh, hold on one second. That video started up again. I'm sorry for the interruption. But it's just a terrible tragedy. My heart goes out to everyone affected by it. It's unfortunate, that we're seeing this happen so much in our world today. But guys, we're the good in the world, and we can't live in fear, but at the same time, we can't live with our heads buried in the sand either. You know, got to be aware of our surroundings and everything that's going on around us. So stay vigilant, my friends. Hope you all have a wonderful night. God bless you. I love you. And if I haven't told you that in a while, I love every single one of you. Stay safe. Later.